Hello, and welcome to The Cut of Steel, episode 13. I'm your host, Carmine, and with me is James Seelig.
Hello.
And Brandon Moncada back at it again.
Up.
And we are here 1 week after recording our Peacemaker episode because something important came up, of course. A little movie that we've been waiting for called Wieners. And we're so happy.
Did you watch that trailer?
I watched that fucking trailer.
I heard him watching that trailer.
It's so stupid.
Oh man, you want to see it.
I don't think I honestly do. Looking
Dude,
at the
you know what's
cast,
crazy? It's got Zachary Levi.
I know. I was like, it's like Dexter, Zachary Levi. I was like, what the fuck?
And then on top of that, it's like starring SNL's Kenan Thompson. You're like, wait a minute. He's been on SNL since like 2007.
Wasn't the movie coming out in 2008?
Yeah.
Wait, what? Oh, it's an old trailer?
Yeah, it's old.
Yeah.
It's definitely, no, they would never make this now. It would never survive.
Interesting.
I don't even know if it would make it straight to Netflix or anything. It would die before that. But of course, we're actually here. Yeah, we're actually here to talk The Batman. We have seen it pretty much opening weekend. Brandon and myself saw it Thursday night in IMAX, and then the night after, James and I saw it at the Alamo. So I've already seen it twice, and I can easily say without a doubt, I will probably see this a minimum of most likely 5 times in the theater.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Well, Brandon mentioned XD, and I'm down to watch an XD. I want to see it in the Balboa Theater to support my local theater. I'm assuming you'd be down with that, maybe. And then Dolby Digital, because I really want to listen to it in Atmos, where it'll be full surround sound.
Okay.
Imagine that Batmobile revving. Oh my god, it's gonna be insane. So yeah, I'm thinking about all those different times. Of course, we'll see. Yeah, but
so long though.
I don't care.
I want to see it like a second time, and I'll be good.
Yeah. We have a full topic list like we did with Peacemaker, a little bit more structured actually this time for sure. Kind of first going through 5 specific characters and then hitting off some minor characters briefly, followed by really getting into the influences of this movie, whether it was comic books, and it had a lot of comic influences from different books, even films and certain real life events too that had some interesting influences to it. Plus, talking about the iconic music in this movie, just Matt Reeves' direction in general of what he was able to accomplish here, and kind of what we're looking at for Warner Brothers and how they're going to see their directors in the future with their other DC movies and potentially maybe other movies in general. I'm not too sure. Plus, some things about the end of the movie that we will get to when we get to about a certain character, and kind of what we're looking forward to with the sequels for this trilogy, with more so the second movie, but what we could see overall, whether it's villains and what they're trying to accomplish with this and everything else. But a lot to hit here, and some other minor topics might come up whenever they feel appropriate, so we'll see how it goes. Starting off though, you guys, let's hit up Robert Pattinson as the Batman and minorly also as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, that was the most interesting thing. He spent most of the movie like in costume, which that's a first, I think.
I don't remember where, but I read somewhere that was the goal. Like that was intended everything was intended for a reason, right? But like from the get-go, I read somewhere that the whole point behind the movie was that they were gonna have him in the suit more than him as Bruce.
Yeah, it worked. I liked it.
Definitely worked. Looking at like previous iterations, we've had kind of balances, interests, like Bale was a good amount of both on screen. Ben Affleck's Batman was, we don't really have that much of him, but we still had a little bit of both, whether it was in BVS or him just being Bruce Wayne as Batman in Justice League. And then like, other iterations, like the animated series, we had a good balance there too. But here it was all Batman. And he even mentions it very much in the beginning of the movie. He does not really care about Bruce Wayne. he only cares about Batman and the mission he's
Yeah.
doing for his family. And it's even talked about near the end where he's confronting the Riddler in Arkham, where he's like, you know, whoever you are under the mask is actually the mask. The real you is right here in front of me. The other you is your persona. That's your true mask. And I thought that was very well done, especially because it's his second year and he right now is still learning a lot. He hasn't figured out everything yet, and by the end, his mission, he has like a different mission statement by the end of the movie compared to his beginning.
Well, I find it interesting that he starts off the movie by saying, like, I don't even know if I'm making a difference. Like, it's kind of cool to see that side of Batman where he's like, he's still going out and trying to make a difference, but he's like, not sure if it's worth it or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that we got a Batman that actually talks to himself.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude, the opening narration, I was like, oh, that's just straight out of the comics.
Yeah, like every gritty, like non-celestial or super powered superhero. With the ones that are more like on the street level, they typically, like Daredevil and Batman are the ones that typically would like monologue to themselves. You don't really I mean, you find that in all types of comics, obviously, but you don't really find that in like something like that's very cosmic or something that's like Superman or anything like that. I mean, there is monologuing, but not as much.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Typically,
it's not taking centerpiece of it.
Yeah, typically in a lot of like Batman or like Daredevil comics, when they're patrolling, that's when they're talking to themselves.
Yeah,
like thinking about everything.
and it's
You
interesting.
actually got a lot of that.
Definitely, it's interesting seeing, like, of course, you know, looking at the comics evolution. It started off earlier. They'd have the actual thought bubbles, like you'd have the little dot 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 bubble, and over time it evolved to these like more monologue boxes where it's themed after the hero that's going after it. So usually when you read a Batman comic, it's like a black gray box with the bat symbol in the corner, and you're reading it and you're knowing this is Bruce Wayne's perspective in his head. And usually, you know, if I'm reading the comic, I just hear Kevin Conroy's voice, just like, I'm Batman. And you're like, oh yeah, that's great. But this, like, it's insane how, you know, the very first iteration of Batman was all the way on the screen in the 40s. And all the other, like, there are serial TV show things.
Okay.
But it went from all the way from there to eventually getting other superhero movies and TV shows from Superman, Spider-Man, the MCU, all the shit. And it took all the way to 2022 for us to finally get a monologue like that. And I think we've only seen it once before. I just actually remembered we have only gotten it once, and I think it was only in, I want to say, 2008, 2009. I can't remember what year, but Rorschach and The Watchmen was the only other time I think we've ever gotten a monologue. Yeah, that's like the only time. But it's just astounding that we got it, and it was like the beginning, the end, and it worked so well. Like, it felt so good. Like, you're getting goosebumps listening to it. And especially with the intro, the way he's perceived, and it's a Batman I've wanted to see two specific pieces of them for so long. One is that feeling of fear, and we sort of get it in Batman Begins a bit, where he's like, you know, they're in that warehouse and they're like, who is it? And Scarecrow's like, it's the Batman. And you're like, oh boy. But here, he's not even there.
That's the thing. Like in the Bale movies, like I'm sure at some point he mentioned like using fear as a weapon or whatever, but you never really saw him use it effectively. It's like on a mass scale.
I got you upside down on this roof.
But yeah, stuff like that. But then like this Batman though is like, he is feared enough that literally just criminals look in a dark alley and they're like, not worth it. He might be there.
Yeah.
And that's cool to see that he has like an actual like fear effect on the city's criminal elements. And they like maybe sometimes avoid doing the thing that they were going to do for the night just because he might be out there.
Yeah. And I do love that they make him like a boogeyman like that. And that is one of the biggest things that I'm so happy this movie did. The other thing, of course, is Batman stays true to his original title. detective.
Yeah, that was really cool, especially seeing him actually like in crime scenes, like doing his own investigation. Also interesting to see that it's like, I mean, Gordon seems to trust him at this point, but not all cops do. So like they're constantly going like, hey, you're gonna let this random dude on the crime scene? He's a freak that dresses like a bat. Like, what the hell? Like the I do like that one cop that was like actually a fan of Bruce Wayne, but he was like earlier giving shit to Batman.
Oh,
I thought that was funny.
Martinez, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce Wayne.
I think. Oh, sorry.
No, I was pretty much done.
The other thing I was gonna say, like, I genuinely love this film. I have no problem saying this is the best Batman movie ever.
For sure.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
What about Batman Returns, Brandon?
I know, right? We don't talk about that.
I know.
No, but like, there are scenes that are kind of awkward with him. That, like, it makes sense why they did it, but it's also like it feels a little awkward. So like when he's at crime scenes, like the first crime scene when Riddler kills the mayor. We're talking spoilers, full on, right?
Yeah, full spoilers.
Okay, yeah.
Have
So
you not watched
when
this
he's
movie yet, people?
when he's at the crime scene, it's one of those things like he kind of stands there and he's just like scanning. He's literally scanning because his contact lens record everything. So he has detective vision going on, but he just kind of like rotates and just stares people down, and it's very robotic. And he's just kind of like walking with like his boots just stomping everywhere. And it's just kind of like, my friend described it as like it looks like he's about to fart every time. Like
I don't know. Maybe I'd have to see it again.
So
I
like
probably
that's
will,
not
but
it's not like a bad thing, but it does look a little awkward on screen, because if you look at a comic book, it's easy for one panel he's like staring and then the next panel he walks around.
yeah.
But in a movie, and I'm not trying to like make this sound like it's the worst thing ever or anything. It's just like there's moments where he just looks kind of weird, like
Yeah, no, I got you.
uncomfortable. So I think like it makes sense why they do it in context of like the character in the movie, and he does a good job of it. But there are moments where you're just kind of like, okay, dude, like scan the crime scene and move on. Like,
Well, it makes me think of two things. One, I'm just got a new monologue where it's like Tuesday, October 31st. I'm in the mayor's room where his corpse is lying and holding in the beefy 5-layer burrito I had earlier from Taco Bell.
he does look like he's gonna fart sometimes. Like,
I guess like my only thought of why he is the way he is it's still young, very young Batman. He's not even in his 30s yet. He's still in his late 20s, and it's supposed to be his second year. And you know, we all know how year one is. He gets in there, and even Gordon's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And everyone's after him. No one trusts him. No one likes him. He's against everyone until the very end of it, where, you know, he rescues Gordon's son and shit. And year two, it's supposed to be the introduction of him working with cops, just starting. And so far, it's just Gordon. And the other cops are tolerating him now, though. Like, he's able to actually walk in to a crime scene of a dead mayor of the city and then walk out scot-free, with even the commissioner coming in going like, "Ah, fuck, he's here. Oh, well." Like, he's not even
he's here.
yeah, he's not going to stop him or anything. And even like at one point, they go from attempting to try to shoot him at the station to then following him and just kind of going like, "Yeah, just do what he does, whatever, man. Like, it's the Batman." And I did really like that evolution of kind of seeing the cops, none of the cops trusting him, to even like the one calling him a freak in the beginning, Martinez, just being like, "Oh, hey, you're here in the Riddler's place. Might as well just start a conversation with you," and even give you hints. Like, he helps him like solve the final riddle, or like the final like plan that Riddler had and stuff, just by just talking, which was really interesting. But one thing I really did like for his evolution too is by the end of it, it's implied that he learns that maybe not just being the Batman is enough. And we don't really get that in other film iterations or even television iterations. Like, it's very rare, because it's a whole thing where, you know, one of the arguments against Batman is, well, he's so rich, why doesn't he just help the people with his Bruce Wayne money and do philanthropy and shit? And, you know, he does at a minor point, but in this one, you feel it. Like, at a certain point, the mayor comes and talks to him and is like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I noticed like you haven't done shit, but if I'm mayor, you're gonna do shit." And by the end of it, the way he's working as Batman with them, and he understands now. Like he does that ending monologue, and he's like, I see things are changing, but I could also change in another way too. Like he's gonna start being Bruce Wayne now, whether it's just to help people or maybe he'll start really utilizing himself there and like, hey, maybe I can live a little bit, or at least like walk in the daylight without fucking shades. Which can we just for a second talk about the fact that he just like middle of the day he's like, oh fuck, the sunlight is too much.
He's like up all night,
yeah
that's
great.
fair.
But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Were there anything else that stood out to you, whether it was his acting or the way he is as Batman and stuff? Like this character has done so much, I feel like.
The action feels genuine. So I'm not here to bash the Christopher Nolan trilogy, but if you watch some of the fighting in that game, it's really movie in those movies, it's very stiff. It's very like,
oh yeah,
even like
they talk about his neck not being able to move for
and like he physically looks stiff, and the fighting looks extremely choreographed, like especially in the third one. And
oh, you mean like that fight on the roof with Bane's guys? And if you look closely, there's one guy who
throws himself,
who's not fighting anybody. It's you can't unsee it when you see it. You're just like, I got so scared for the bat.
Yeah, like
his spirit came and started fighting me, Bane.
Everybody's fighting, and this one guy literally just throws himself like if he got punched. It's hilarious. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Fear toxin. He's fighting his own demons.
Yeah.
Dad.
So, but like in this movie, the fighting feels a little bit more genuine. Like that hallway scene, that wasn't any special effects. You know that, right?
That was all practical. Everything.
It was all practical effects.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a lot of like planning and coordination and choreography going on, and I think they took that level of care. Like they didn't think they could pull it off because all the muzzle flashes, that is the only light in that scene. And I think that level of care was put into all of the fights. If you like pay attention, like the fights are pretty hardcore. Like when Batman fights, it feels like you're watching like a martial arts film.
Oh no, yeah.
For sure.
It's definitely amazing. I feel like
one of my favorite scenes is like him like fighting his way out of the police station. Because like specifically like the right before he fights or like punches Gordon, like when all the cops are around him and he just like gets up wicked fast and just like makes sure to get space away from people and stuff like that. And like I don't know, I thought that was like a cool move. Like he immediately gets like combat ready.
Yeah, and being completely surrounded, you see him like not even. You kind of see him loose and reckless because he was also like concussed from the blast. He is really whipping back and forth. Like you see his cape moving, you see him kind of a little frantic there. That's like, at least in terms of his combat, I think that's him in his most like, I guess, disarrayed compared to everything else. Like when he's like fighting the Riddler goons, or I guess Riddler QAnon guys, like whatever you want to call them, when he flies down through there, he's like fully like ready to go compared to that. One thing too I noticed was all these fights in this movie. When you think of like, oh, top comic book movie fights, all of a sudden like multiple fights here are just listed now under the top like 10 easily. You're just like, oh, it's just half of it now is just from the Batman. Because when you think about it, like a lot of the fights we get from other comic book movies, they're cool, but they're very much like superpower laser beam blast, and you're like, oh wow,
I'm gonna shove you 5 miles.
Yeah, and it like in terms of just full combat, you only get that from I want to say 3 other things, and it's like BVS with Batman in the warehouse, Daredevil in the first season in that hallway fight, and also the fucking insane season 3 3-way fight between him, Bullseye, and Kingpin, which was phenomenal, by the way. And then recently I would have to say too, like Shang-Chi's choreography was amazing as well. And it goes now with these, they all kind of like are so far at the top of what we've seen in terms of like sheer physical combat. Whereas like, you know, if you go into the super stuff, you know, you'd look at like, I guess, I don't know, Superman and Zod and Man of Steel or something where it's like the powered stuff and whatnot, or something from maybe an Avengers movie. I don't really know. It's like hard to remember, to be honest. But the fights here and the choreography were just beautiful, absolutely stunning. Trying to think if there is really anything else that stood out with him as Batman.
He, you know, he's not the most like convincing body wise. Like he's not ripped as like Ben Affleck was, but when you think about beforehand, not much of any of the Batman actors were really buff.
Yeah,
Ben Affleck was the first one to get like a comic book fake looking body.
you see him like pulling the tire and you're just like, oh, this is it.
Yeah. So I think like it's fine. You know, he looked a little scrawny for a Batman. And it's a little hard to believe. That was like the other thing. It's a little hard to believe he's like able to hit that hard. But don't get me wrong, like it's possible, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got like the suit. I mean, it's not like a powered suit or anything, but I mean, did he have like?
You can imagine those gloves are pretty strong.
Yeah,
Well,
no, don't
he
get.
could have
He
like
also had his,
like knuckles or whatever.
but he also had his hands wrapped, kind of like a
Muay Thai?
Yeah. If you notice, there's a scene when he takes his gloves off, his knuckles are wrapped up. And that's probably to
Yeah.
protect them, but also an added layer.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying someone his size can't hit that hard. That, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not also gonna critique a movie that you know, a comic book movie to that point, but like sometimes with, you know, with Batman, it's kind of weird because he's supposed to be just a human, right? So
Yeah.
like he's got certain limitations apparently. I mean, we all know Batman doesn't have limitations, but
Well, yeah, it's Batman.
you know, it's
His
like
only
you
limitation
see,
is how much time he has to prepare.
and don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure Robert Pattinson could kick someone's ass. He probably kicked my ass. But it's just like you look at him and you're like, can he really punch as hard as Batman is like known to punch? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, it's possible for someone his like size. I'm just saying he's a little scrawny. Again, not a bad thing, but he's not like, it's kind of breaking the comic book norm of like what a superhero body looks like.
He's,
So it's a
he's
little awkward
definitely,
at first.
yeah, he's definitely smaller than the other actors that have played Batman. Especially, I don't know if it's just been time now compared to like when they first were in the roles compared to like where they are now. But is it me or is Robert Pattinson the youngest casted Batman for on screen besides the one in Joker that was literally just a child? But I
I don't
feel
know,
like
how old is he right now?
I mean, would you count the kid from Gotham?
No.
No. He was in the suit once.
He was in the suit once at the very end, but then again, when they do that future like flash forward stuff, Selena Kyle's recast. It's a different actress.
Okay.
She's much older.
So Christian Bale was actually younger.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Yes. So Christian Bale is 48 right now, and Robert Pattinson is 35. Assuming the Batman started 2 years ago in production, give or take, that means Robert Pattinson was like 32, 33. And Batman Begins came out 17 years ago. So at minimum, Christian Bale was 31 when that movie came out.
Okay.
It's crazy. He looks older back then
Yeah,
too.
right?
Christian Bale was like 26 in American Psycho when that came out.
Damn, he looks so much older. It's
Yo,
weird.
that was a 26-year-old running around naked with a chainsaw and tennis shoes.
Basically.
That's
So
crazy.
all in all, I think with Robert Pattinson, it's a little awkward and jarring at first, but then it becomes more believable as you watch him. Because it is possible for someone his size to be that strong and that proficient at fighting. You know what I mean? So it's believable. It's just a little awkward at first, and then you get used to it when you start seeing him play the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I feel like I was way more worried about his casting before I saw the movie, just because like all the preview stuff that came out where there's like, oh, his voice is basically just whispering the whole movie. And I was just like, that could sound bad. Yeah, it's like that could sound bad. And then like the news blurb about him not knowing that Batman is the world's greatest detective until after he saw the movie himself. And I was just like, how is that even possible? I mean, I hope they got the tone right. And no, he was totally fine. Like I thought he was actually really good. Like way, way better than I expected.
Considering like through the movie, you feel like he wins you over. Like throughout the movie, he convinces you over and over and over that it's like, I'm the Batman. I can be Batman. I was Cedric Diggory. I was the vampire Edward.
Edward. Team
Yeah.
Edward.
And
I liked him in
it
the
was him and
Lighthouse.
Jason, the werewolf, right? The Jason was werewolf. Anyway, but he was like the vampire, and then he got a lot of shit for it.
Jacob.
Okay, all right, fucking.
I
He was some guy.
Shit, I
just
know.
remembered his dad was in a wheelchair and the went rain in the trailer, and it was really funny. But he, got shit for being sparkly vampire man, and then we didn't really see him for a long time until all of a sudden he comes back in these more, I don't want to say independent movies, but like more unique original films like The Lighthouse. And I think there was, James, you watched one, right? It had him and Tom Holland in it on Netflix or something. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, The Devil All the Time.
Yeah. And
he was in that movie, that's right.
He was in another movie, I can't remember, but it influenced this too. It was like a special, he wore like a jacket or something in it. I forget. He looked like some interesting looking character, but he's proven, at least with his more recent movies, that he can really act. Just like,
he's a good actor, for sure.
I feel like every single time we get a version of Batman, and everyone that comes into that movie, everyone gives them shit. They're like, oh God, this is going to be horrible. Anne Hathaway, Heath Ledger, whatever, like this isn't going to work. And all of a sudden you watch it and you're like, oh shit, this is great. And
dude, we'll get to Colin Farrell later, but like even the Penguin, I was like, why would you cast Colin Farrell? And I liked him a lot.
Yeah. Or most people literally went, oh, who's playing the Penguin? I just saw him. He looks great. That's Colin Farrell. Yeah. And then their minds blow every single fucking time.
Yeah, I told one of my coworkers that, and she was like, wait, what?
You mean Bullseye?
Yeah. Oh my God.
My hands.
What
did you do to my hands?
Batman was in that movie too.
Yeah, it's all connected.
I love that there's always this just weird ass web. Just like, there's also an X-Men in this movie. Zoe Kravitz played Angel in First Class. But not the winged angel, the weird bug. I shoot acid.
Yeah, with the tattoo wings, which was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, they should have just made her, I don't know why they made her angel. It didn't make any sense. But she was in it nevertheless. Until she was shown to be dissected and killed in the second movie, in Days of Future Past. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. What was I gonna say? But yeah, Robert Pattinson does a great job, and the voice, real fast with the whispers. Like, I gotta say, I think he is for sure, I want to say, tied with Ben Affleck as like the best voiced Batman.
Oh yeah, no, but if I didn't make that clear, like the voice that he does the whole movie, I thought it was actually really cool.
Yeah, because we get all the other iterations. There's, chum, we've got shit to solve, and it's like Adam West, and it's like, very pulpy for that age. We have Mike. I don't even remember the Burton Batman voices. I don't want to remember the Burton Batman voices.
Kind of like,
and then they turn
like this weird whisper talk.
Like,
yeah,
they have to move their whole fucking body to turn and shit. And then Bale's, Batman, where's our trigger? And you're like, oh fuck! Like, until we've gotten Ben Affleck, who had the awesome voice modulator, which I thought was really fucking cool, and then now Pattinson being just more, I'm gonna do a low filter on myself, just doing my own local voice pass on there, and it works so well with his own voice doing it. And I applaud him for the fact that he didn't need any modulation. It's just like, oh, here I am with the voice like this. And maybe they did do something. I
feel like they might have done something in editing, but
they did that. Some actually, yes, they did modulate. They did some voice modulation, but he does feel like it's believable as something talking naturally like that.
Oh, for sure.
I really appreciated that. But speaking of X-Men, we had Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and this is I made a big deal about this. I'm like, this is our first Jewish Catwoman, and I'm very happy to see that. She's done a great job, and she's, I believe, the third Black Catwoman as well, after Eartha Kitt from the Adam West time, and then the one we shall not speak of, played by Halle Berry.
Oh no.
But
I never saw that movie.
I didn't actually either. I just saw parts of it, and knew as a child that it wasn't for me.
I've seen videos on it, and it's so confusing.
Yeah, and let me just say real quick, when we recorded our recent episode on apollocitycomics podcast, I did not know that Zoe Kravitz applied basically to be in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
But they didn't let her in
Yeah.
because of and I quote, because they said it was the color of her skin. And
Weird.
I was like, that's fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
you would think Hollywood has gotten better by that time, but it obviously still was fucked up. I mean, it's still pretty messed up over there, but like, it's crazy to think like that was a thing that happened and no one knew about it.
Yeah. And, like, looking at it, and we talked about it in that episode. I was talking about how I brought to light, I didn't even think I was saying it and discovering it for myself as I went, going like, oh yeah, they watched a lot of characters in that trilogy. But
dude, yeah, we talked about the whitewashing of like every character in that movie.
Yeah, from Bane, Ra's al Ghul, everyone. But like, it's funny too, because Zoe Kravitz, she wasn't even auditioning for Catwoman. I don't believe it was like a different role. I'm not sure what it was. I never looked into it myself, but it's interesting that even then they were like, oh no, that's going too far.
Dude, that I was literally caught off guard with that. Like, it had me speechless for a second. I was like this really was a thing.
Yeah,
like, it's crazy. And I think it shows that she really wanted to be part of like a Batman movie, and she finally got it.
Yeah, she did a good job. I mean, she was one of the better parts of this movie. I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, people talk about like Michelle Pfeiffer being like the Catwoman, like on screen, that everyone knows and loves. And I've said what I've said about Batman Returns, but like, she's the best Catwoman to date. Like, Zoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked her like proto suit, where it's like just kind of a cat suit, but like she has like kind of a balaclava or whatever, like the
the mask.
The head mask, but like
a ski mask.
Yeah, like a ski mask, but like it just covers her nose.
Yeah,
and she's able to do the full. She's like, I got the cat ears.
Yeah, and it even has like little cat ears, like not like super, like it's not definitely cat ears, but it's like enough.
They're
of an
alluding
odd.
to it. They did the same thing with Anne Hathaway, where like her goggles turned into cat ears.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. But I don't know. I even liked that at some point in the movie, she like got off her like motorcycle and pulled out like a whip or whatever. Or
when she takes out the twins when it's at the Penguins exchange, or like his warehouse transportation time. I gotta say too, like, she had it all down, and everything from like, I mean, obviously, as a guy, you're automatically like, oh shit, it's Catwoman. Like, I can't believe it. My mind, like, I love her, she's hot and stuff, and like whatever. But
also she whooped ass.
But she got everything down, because the whole thing with Catwoman is she talks very seductively. She's very seductive. And even when she takes out the twins at that meet, you see the way she's walking. She's doing like a full strut as she just finished up combat. Like, she just has everything naturally going. Like, you don't question it. You go, yeah, that's how much swagger she has. And looking at like the way she's able to just use one leg to take somebody out, just like the constant kicking she's able to do, it's amazing, like the prowess she has there. And I'll talk about it later on with the influences from like other books and stuff, but you get, even with the haircut, you get that year one vibe easily with everything. Like, it's so good the way they pull that off.
Well, I love how easily it was, or how easy it was for her to just like break into a crime scene, to break into
honestly
a vault.
The same way Riddler got into the place was through the roof.
Was that? Oh, did they mention that?
Yeah, like the Riddler, it shows him looking at the mirror, and like his son comes in, then he looks up at the roof, implying he's coming in through the roof to break in.
Missed that.
And then the same thing, Catwoman just comes down, then Batman comes down. Everyone's just coming through the roof, and they still are just like, we didn't watch the roof. One thing too, which is actually more hilarious than anything, is for the role for both of them. I actually forgot with Pattinson, their auditioning styles had, I believe, classic suits from the Burton age. Pattinson, I believe, wore the Batman Forever bat suit, from what I heard in an interview. when he was first doing the role, and it was just from the top up. So the bottom half was just sweats. So it was Batman in sweatpants, but it was the Val Kilmer outfit. And I'm just like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Meanwhile, she had the Fight for Catwoman mask on, it looked like. And she, you think she's joking when she's like, yeah, I actually acted like I was licking out of a bowl of milk, like, down. And what happened, dude? On her Instagram, she posts the full photos with her and the Fight for mask on, licking fucking milk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this shit's real. Like, they got into full roles for this, and I love the fact that they got like super into character. Even you see her at the premiere, she's got the cat dress. Like, even the dress has like two cats, like literally covering her breast. There's two cat ears and everything. It's like phenomenal the way they do that. But going back to her character, like her past, the way they connect Long Halloween into it too, where John Turturro plays Carmine Falcone, which we'll get to in a bit, but the way they incorporate him being her father. And
yeah, I never knew that. That was super interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that was from Catwoman. Well, we'll get to it, but
but the way they establish that relationship and give her more as a leading lady than a supporting actress, I would say, or as a supporting character. Like, you're watching the movie and it is called The Batman, but you feel Catwoman not as like a little second fiddle. Like, she is prominent.
No, she has her own like whole storyline and everything, where she's trying to find like her friend, and then like eventually literally finds her stuffed in a duffel bag dead. And then she's like, well, at least I'll steal some money. I'll go find the guy who did this and kill him.
Yeah, it was like a pretty hardcore PG-13 movie.
Yeah, I honestly, I never looked at the rating. I couldn't remember if it was R or PG-13.
This is gonna sound stupid, but like one like touch about her character, like outfit and everything, that I thought was super funny, or not funny, but interesting, was like her nails literally looks like cat nails, and her gloves when she's in costume had holes in the tips so that her claws could still come through. I thought that was like a funny little touch.
Yeah.
I think like it was the most modern take on the character you could have at this point.
Yeah.
Without looking too, I guess, comic booky, if that makes sense. Like, makes any sense.
In terms of the looks or just her situation?
Her looks. Like the actual costume design.
Yeah. I could see like this still being just her proto outfit for this at the same time too. Like, I could imagine maybe not necessarily the suit, but the cowl. Like, I can imagine most likely the like Ed Brubaker version. I would imagine coming in eventually. If you ever knew, Ed Brubaker did do a run on Catwoman, and it's like the classic, like she's got the goggles, she's got like the regular mask and stuff. I do see this iteration coming in the future.
Yeah, I mean, one of the topics we wanted to talk about later was like what's going to happen next.
Yeah,
and like one of the things at the end of the movie was like the outgoing monologue where Batman is saying like, I have made it. I see now I have made a change on the city, but not the change that I thought it was going to be. Implying that like, he inspired people like the Riddler to like do something insane. Like, what else could happen? Maybe Catwoman goes and looks at him and says like, hey, that guy's got a suit. Why don't I make a suit? I could do that.
Yeah. She lacks the money at least, but I mean, now she doesn't actually. She has a double bag full of money, so she can definitely make some changes. And I'm sure Bloodhaven's cheaper than Gotham in terms of rent, probably. I don't.
Bloodhaven's a city, like, unless it's Nightwing, you just don't hear anything about it.
I was shocked that they said Bloodhaven. Like, you feel like it was like you and 3 other people in the theater where you're just like, she says Bloodhaven. I'm like, oh.
I literally pointed at the screen. I was like, oh, hey, Bloodhaven.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna get references in there.
Oh yeah, totally. But otherwise, the way her attitude goes, where she's very much like the character that shouts out more modern, I guess, political events, whether it's like 1% white privilege and stuff. Like, you notice it very briefly, but it's interesting to see like them bring it in, and it's very believable the way they do that. And she's like, all these fucking commissioners and mayors die, and everyone's losing their shit, and this one woman that has never had the good things that they've had is killed, and no one gives 2 shits about her. And just bringing those topics in, I thought was really well done. Like, it felt like it came in naturally, where in modern day, whether it's TV shows or movies, you know, sometimes you get things that are shoehorned in for the sake of a message, and the message may not match the rest of the content that it's coming in with. But I felt like this one did it so well that you don't question it. You're like, yeah, no, this works very well. This makes sense, and exactly what she's talking about. Other than that, I think, is there anything else you guys want to talk about, Catwoman?
I think like the thing that's interesting with Catwoman, I always felt like was, you know, when it comes to superhero stuff, there's always going to be at some point like sexualization within the character design.
Yes.
It's just kind of like it comes with the material. Like all comic book characters have been like sexualized at one point, if they still aren't, you know. The thing with this Catwoman was it, you know, it's one of those things where like the sexualization was, how do I put it? It's, how do I want to word it? It's like
Empowering?
Empowering?
Well,
It's more of like a lot of time it's for like the male gaze.
yeah.
And that could be the case now, but maybe I'm wrong, and I could be wrong, but it's like she knew it was like she used that to get like to be like the inside person working at the club. And I felt like a lot of the times that Catwoman's been displayed on screen, it's always been like over sexualized just for the sake of sexualized, and all these like weird sexual cat puns, you know. And this time around, there wasn't any awkward, weird sexual cat puns, but it was like, in a way, not just for the male gaze, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I could easily see a little girl watching this and being like, I want to be like Catwoman. Like, just like, maybe not as much as being like, I want to be Wonder Woman, but I could definitely see this being something of an influence or inspiration in different facets, whether it's like just being badass or fashion or anything really.
Well, it was like the character was like, maybe I'm wrong, but like in past Batman movies, it always seemed like she like needed Batman for help.
Yeah.
In certain ways. But this time around, it was like she did need help, but she could still handle herself. And
yeah,
she would like, you know, in her own way, deceive the men in the club in order to be on the inside and I guess like be able to use that to her advantage when it came to like her own investigations. And it seemed like it serviced what was going on in the movie and not necessarily serviced like just male gaze, if that makes any sense.
Oh no, it makes perfect sense. Like the fact that she's able to get all the information she wants, because guys, the advantage she has over them is they don't think of her. And because they don't think of her, they easily underestimate her. And when it comes out of it, she's just like, you fucked up. And now I know everything I need to know.
Like, she doesn't let any guy get near her, but she like distracts them enough to where she could slip past them.
Yeah. And then also even with like Batman and everything, you know, he's like, hey, I worry about you. And she's like, I could, trust me, tall, dark, and vengeance. Like, I could take care of myself. And, you know, you see her later with Mackenzie just beating the shit out of him, like, hey, look what I caught. And you're just like, oh my God. So you definitely feel like, unless it's her own father, she's pretty much like on top of it all. Without a doubt.
Long story short, it felt like a Catwoman that was not just sexual puns.
Yes.
The entirety of the movie.
It felt like a character with feelings, with motivation, with just a drive.
Yeah, and because again, before, from what I've seen, it seems like it was just sexual cat puns the whole time. And this time around, it wasn't just that. There was like depth to her. And that's partly due to probably the writing, but also her, you know, her being a good actress. And being and understanding, like she's done really well in other movies too. And so she's known to be a great actress. And in this role, she's like, again, you know, honestly being one of the better characters in the movie, if not the best character.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time she's been like a badass in a movie. I don't know if you guys remember, but she's in Mad Max Fury Road as one of Immortan Joe's wives. And of all the wives, she's the one that's like, I know how to use a gun, and is just there like loading up guns and taking shots. And it's awesome to see. So
she's also in and Dope.
That's dope. I haven't seen it, but
Oh.
honestly.
So it's a good movie, but she's in that as well.
Okay. Moving on to the who do I have next? I guess the Lieutenant Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright. This is probably the most involved Gordon we've ever had on screen, which, you know, says something comparing, like, you know, we've seen what's his face? Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon, which, you know, we got the
He's
most of
pretty good.
before. He's in every single all three
has
of
the
Nolan's
mustache.
movies. He's very involved. Like, he's there all the time. And a lot of the times he's just kind of like, Batman comes and he helps out in some way. The only time he's really been fully involved was the fear gas with Scarecrow and stopping that, the like Joker truck fight when they're on the road, and then trying to stop the bomb in Dark Knight Rises. But Jeffrey Wright's character is much more like he's down there the whole time because he's also not high ranking yet. So he's got no help. He's got no one to order around unless like he's just trying to get Batman past the crime scene. So this is a dude who's just, I get everything done myself. And I work with Batman. I'm the only one that uses this signal. I'm the only one that comes to this like tower where I have the signal for Batman. And he isn't afraid to take a punch. He's not afraid of anything, really. Like, he gets in there every single time, whether it's being shot at by Riddler dudes or anything like that. And he plays a very like believable guy of like, hey man, you have your way and I have mine. I'm not putting this gun down and shit like that. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Like, you mentioned him taking a punch. Like, the fact that he believed that the Batman could like figure out what's going on and like find the Riddler so much that he's like, okay, I'm gonna pretend like I'm giving you shit, but I need you to punch me in the face and just run the fuck out of here. And he does, and like he takes it. And I also love that he comes back later. He's like, you could have held that punch a little. Like, I did.
So good.
It's just like Catwoman and Batman. This is like the best Gordon to date on screen. And I think everyone kind of knew that coming into it, because like the moment you saw the first trailer and you saw him, you're like, that's Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, Jeffrey
Like,
Wright's just great.
Yeah, it was like almost like a no-brainer to choose him. You know, like it was almost like natural to the point where like it was like, oh, why didn't we choose him before?
Yeah. And he usually in any cast he stands out a lot. Like, he is probably one of the best characters in Westworld, or
absolutely.
one of the people in Westworld.
Dude, like the twist with him in the end of the first season was so mind blowing. I was just like, oh, I can't understand. I can't believe what's happening.
Yeah, it's so good. And then like even in Hunger Games, because you know it gets in its own thing, but like the second through fourth movie, he's in there. And he's a lot of fun. He's like the brains of everything, and it's like interesting seeing him. And this isn't his first time doing all this stuff. Like, he actually, I haven't listened to it or watched it. I don't know if there's any visual on it yet. I need to still, but there's a Batman audio drama on HBO Max, and he
that one
voices Batman in it, which is funny because you have him voicing Batman.
Huh.
You can imagine just his, you know, gruff voice and everything else, and the fact that you have him here now as Gordon. And I think also like reinforcing what you say, Brandon, like he's the best Gordon on screen. He's there as Batman's partner the whole time. And that's what sets him apart from the previous iterations and really brings him to light, because almost every single Riddler related issue that has Batman there, Gordon is almost there every single time. Even like from Penguin to coming outside with Falcone and Mackenzie and the chase and everything else, it's always him. He's always there no matter what. Even when he doesn't realize like Batman's there, when he just sees Bruce Wayne at the funeral, like Gordon's there front and center. He's the first one to go forward to that car when the DA comes, like he drives in the fucking funeral and shit. Like, it's so much fun to watch him. And I think what makes this movie so well done is the fact that it does two things that are very important, and things that I think The Dark Knight, the reason why this overshadows the Dark Knight is the Dark Knight. We talked about it a little bit earlier at the Apollo episode, but its biggest thing is the Joker, and the Joker is the antagonist. The Joker is the bad guy, and he overshadows Batman completely. He overshadows Christian Bale completely. And you don't think about the fact that the main character isn't the best character, whereas in the Batman, that's the opposite, where you're like, oh my god, this is an amazing Batman. I feel like I'm watching the Batman movie for Batman. But he's not alone, and you feel very equalized having Catwoman and Gordon there, because they feel like they are big pieces that, if taken away, is detrimental to the film's quality. And I do like that reverse, like, Long Halloween kind of meeting between, like, you have Dent, Gordon, and Batman, and instead when they're like, interrogating Mackenzie, it's instead of Dent, it's Catwoman. And the best part about that is they go up and they're like, I thought you had I thought you lit the signal. And he's like, oh, I thought you did. And they go up there and they just see her beating the shit out of him. And Gordon just walks over like, how's it going? What's going on? I don't know who you are, but Mackenzie must be corrupted.
Side note, you know who else is in the Hunger Games movies? Foggy.
Oh, Foggy. Yeah, he plays the silent guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, every actor is just in everything pop culture now.
It's hilarious. Yeah, James C. There's like the guy with the camera that's like recording Katniss. That's Foggy Nelson. He plays like the guy that doesn't talk.
Weird. I do not remember this.
He has a ponytail. That's the reason why you can't remember how he looks.
Yeah.
Completely like different hairstyle.
Moving on to the villains.
Foggy Nelson.
Foggy Nelson. Lawyers have always been corrupt. They want your money. Paul Dano,
mom wanted me to be a deli man.
Vote for me for DA. No, Paul Dano's Riddler. Holy shit.
No Jim Carrey.
No, definitely not Jim Carrey. And I'm glad. I don't want Jim Carrey anymore. He changed that character so much because, this is such a grounded take. And if you're having a very
interesting take on the Riddler, for sure.
Yeah, you're not expecting a dude in a green suit that's like, Batman, I sent a series of clues everywhere. And you're just like, oh, okay, thanks, Riddler. Like, this dude.
Well, it's interesting that, like, in the comics, in the cartoons, it seems like the Riddler is always using his riddles to try to, like, prove that he's smarter than everyone around him.
Yes.
But, like, in this, he's using them to, like, expose the truth of Gotham, which is interesting.
Yeah, he's a victim of the system, and through it takes his vengeance out on the system and everyone that enforces its corruption. And it's such a different take because, yeah, it is usually the Riddler hates Batman because Batman always beats him. He always solves it. And the Riddler is so beatable because that's his whole thing. He goes, I'm going to lose if you solve my riddle. There's nothing else that I can do. That is my main thing. And nothing else usually matters. Whereas this one takes it in a complete different direction. Instead of being, hey, Batman, I'm here because you make me want to do better. And like, I want to beat you at your game and shit. He's instead like, you inspire me. And you inspire me to do what I need to stop this corrupt city. And I'm so crazy. I think we're working together. And that if I give you these riddles, you're actually helping me because you're helping expose everything to the city. And you're going to help bring those corrupt to the light. Literally to the light, so I can kill them.
Yeah, that second to last scene with him where he like explains like mostly that he literally thought that he was working with the Batman, and like he had this whole narrative in his own head of like what's going on. He's like, oh yeah, I'm palling around with the Batman, we're working together, we're gonna fix Gotham. Like one of my I wouldn't say problems, but like things I find strange about Batman is that like all his villains tend to go to Arkham, which is a mental institution, even though like Blackgate exists. Like there's regular prisons in Gotham, and like maybe not everyone deserves to, or not deserves, but like needs to go to Arkham. Like the Riddler,
Penguin goes to Blackgate because he's just a criminal.
Yeah, so like but this Riddler, like he truly in that last scene showed me that he like is not mentally well and he needs special like attention and stuff like that. Like the way he freaked out as soon as he realized that Batman's like against him, and he's just like, no, this was not how it's
when he
supposed to
like
go.
has a breakdown.
Yeah, and I was just like, one, it made me super uncomfortable, and like two, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this guy definitely deserves to be in like Arkham, or should be in Arkham, as opposed to like general prison.
Even going through like all of his different videos and appearances, he is always like, you feel the unhinge anytime he goes above vocalization. Like he does that, like, hey, like he starts shouting, and the way he shouts, it's not like I'm shouting with full anger. It just sounds like I'm shouting with sheer derangement.
Like he literally cannot control himself.
Yeah. The outfit itself is very interesting because it's like, you know, it feels creepy as hell. It's like a weird mask, and it's almost like it's similar to Bruce's cowl, where, you know, he has like the way his nose goes, it's very similar in terms of like the nasal area, but like, you know, he's otherwise like, yeah, it's kind of weirdly not dominatrixy, but like
it just, to me, it just kind of felt like generic serial killer, like what you would picture in your head as a serial killer, like what they would look like.
I think the hard thing with like a lot of Batman stuff is the wacky outfits, because even Riddler now, I think, wears the green suit with like the purple tie and like the green hat with the cane and everything. And, you know, that might not translate well to this type of movie, because if you look at classic iterations of the Riddler, you know, like the 1966 show and movie, or like the Jim Carrey one, they all
green leotard question marks.
Yeah, it's just like really goofy, you know, like you can't really take them serious. And so I think they stuck with the green and kind of like the riddles, but I think like the weird, like almost like serial killer glasses with like leather jacket and everything made it more unsettling, but it was like the best they can come up with.
For sure. I'm not even sure if they needed to do a mask at all. Like it didn't matter what he looked like under the mask, and it wasn't like a huge reveal of like, oh, I recognize you once I have the mask off. It's like, no, he's just a regular dude. So he could have just been the Riddler, or like gone by the Riddler, and just like maybe not I don't know. He just like didn't necessarily need to have the mask, but it definitely was unsettling for sure.
You could have done those videos where it's like the person's talking and they're just in the background enough where it's so dark you can't even make out what they look like.
Yeah.
But I think this worked. And I will say, at least, like, you know, the modern comic iteration of Riddler is 20 times more, I guess, believable than the previous ones, where it is the dude with just like a fucking giant question mark on his head or some shit.
And everything's question, and he uses a blender to mind control people.
Yeah. It's a thing. Like now, he at least is a dapper Riddler, where it's like, green suit and stuff. He looks like just a dude with green. Just like I could have had a black suit, and I chose to wear a green suit, and I have a nice little hat and a cane that is like a kind of a like crazy little thing, but it works because I don't know, Riddler works in that way. And I will say too, Riddler of like the classic Bat villains like Riddler, Penguin, Two-Face, Joker, Poison Ivy, etc. Not counting, the ones that are like Ra's al Ghul, Bane, and whatnot. Like Riddler is my favorite of those classic types of villains because he does something that brings out that version of Batman that I really love. Is he brings in all these riddles, he brings in these questions, he brings in something that needs a detective, and that's why he's my favorite of those, for like those classic villains. And in this, we get that. We get a guy who is literally going like, hey, here's all these crazy clues, and one is literally a pun, and it's a very fucked up pun, but it works so well.
That shit was hilarious. The thumb drive.
And you're just like, oh my god, like I can't believe it. And the
audience, fingerprint pass like protected. Try this. It just gives him the thumb.
Gordon's just like, fuck. And the funniest thing I think in that interaction too is the fact that Batman could have put the thumb there himself. He just gives it to Gordon, goes, here you go, you could do it.
I know, right? He could have easily just picked it up and like scanned it.
Yeah.
I love that scene. Gordon he just feels like a cop that's seen just a little bit too much in Gotham, and he's just like, I'm so tired of this.
You get that Danny Glover Lethal Weapon, like I'm too old for this shit feeling in your head.
He's not even commissioner yet.
Yeah, no, he's not captain, he's not chief, he's not commissioner. He's got like 3 full ranks to go, man. Yeah, but Riddler's unhingedness was just so much fun. He definitely brings in enough where I'm easily going to say I want more of him. I don't want him to end there. Like I could definitely see him doing more. He gets his own evolution, which, you know, once again, we'll get more to, I guess, in like the ending portion that's sequel talk and whatnot, and what we're going to see looking forward to it. But he left an impression where it's a villain that is not just like a villain to be a villain. It's not a dude that's just like, well, I saw what you were doing and I'm trying to cheat it's not like Scarecrow or Joker or anything from the Nolan movies. This dude is someone that the system failed. And he even talks about his time in the asylum, and not the orphanage. And it's like, we live like shit. There are 30 kids in a room. Like babies even potentially dying because we don't even have proper heating and shit. And he even then looks deranged in the childhood photo of like the Ave Maria choir of the orphans, and the way he's looking at Bruce, like, oh, you fucking have everything and we got nothing. And
yeah, poor Bruce Wayne, the like millionaire or billionaire.
Billionaire.
Yeah,
the billionaire orphan. And life must be so hard.
And it puts that into perspective, which you honestly don't think about normally, because you do feel like you're like, this kid watched his parents die right in front of him. He was robbed of his childhood, and he's like a different person completely since that day where that kid pretty much died with his parents. And Riddler puts into perspective of like, hey, at least you had a shit ton of money and a loving butler.
Yeah,
I straight up had nothing. We were pretty much fending for ourselves, and
waking up with rats gnawing at your fingers, like, what the hell?
It's like, oh fuck, and you're just like, oh Jesus, and the place turns into a drophead den in the modern day for them too, which I thought drops was an interesting drug term for this movie. It worked very well, honestly. But it brings in that victimization that I thought was, honestly, yeah, it's something we don't see with a lot of Bat villains normally, especially in the comics, because usually it is like, oh, Basil Carlo was Clayface, but before that he was like an actor that just went crazy because he was a little too obsessed with himself and shit like that. It's not like, oh, this tragic thing happened and it made me who I am, kind of like I guess some of the Spider-Man villains, I guess you could say, where it's some stupid scientific bullshit that turned him into an octopus or something. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Aside from him, there's another big villain here of the big older villain generation, and that was Colin Farrell's the Penguin.
Yeah.
Needless to say, those prosthetics were amazing.
The makeup and costume in the movie overall was amazing.
I think he, for the Oscar for like makeup and stuff, surely just looking at the Penguin should win it. Like that is such a contender just for him, just because like, yeah, you could do all these crazy effects and make him look like some gray whatever alien something, but this turns someone into someone completely unrecognizable is something we never see that often in movies.
Even his accent, like he didn't even sound like Colin Farrell.
He sounded like how Penguin would sound.
Yeah. It wasn't Irish guy who might throw a peanut into a lady's throat and kill her on a plane and be like, more nuts, please. It was like, oh, I think I just saw this dude in Goodfellas or The Godfather, and it's this New Yorker Italian potential type dude who is full on mob and has a full attitude and is a wise guy. And it's amazing how they pull that off. And that, like, once again, we'll get to it with the influence and stuff, because there is a good amount of mob influences into this.
How do you feel about East Coast Penguin versus like English Penguin?
What?
Ooh, yeah. So James,
well, because
in certain iterations they make him British or like English. He's like, hello, Bruce. Like, look at the Arkham games. He's like, hello, Bruce. Nolan,
and then
British.
In this movie, he's like the way a lot of like, would it be East Coast to say?
like more New Yorker or like Brooklyn,
Yeah.
New York type.
Yeah, he kind of
guy.
has like a East Coast, like New York.
Hey, take it
Or
easy, sweetheart. Yeah,
yeah, or would it be New York or New Jersey? Well, Gotham's in
it's
New
the same
Jersey.
thing. It's the same thing.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I say
someone
that
might
to
say other.
piss that. No, I say that to piss them off. If
Oh,
anything.
you do? Well-
Guys, there's nothing more New York than New Jersey. I want you to remember that.
Carmen's just gonna get a whole like group of people hating him.
Good.
Good. Well, isn't Gotham in New Jersey?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some ASMR for your podcast.
Take
Your
a look.
podcast.
Yeah, the typing. Welcome
Yeah.
to my typing ASMR channel, guys. And here's the breathing. But yeah, no, he throughout this movie, you feel like the guy is on top for the most part, second only to Carmine Falcone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So Gotham City is traditionally depicted in being located in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
And
It
is
is-
Metropolis New York?
It's like Metropolis. There's New York, and then there's still Metropolis. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And then Gotham is like South Jersey, apparently.
And Metropolis
Hmm.
is in New York, though, right? Is that true? Because it's
Uh,
supposed to be across the bay from each other. It would make more sense, I guess, if that was in New York.
Wait, that shit's real?
What?
yeah. Okay, so
In
Just
Batman
a
v
quick-
Superman, when they literally Gotham was like in eye shot of Metropolis, I was like, that's
oh
not
wow,
real.
so Metropolis is New York.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because
Okay,
it's
yeah.
like they're separate enough, James, where no man's land can happen and Metropolis isn't really affected, whereas like Gotham is and stuff, and they're
Yeah.
easy flights from each other and shit.
So there's actually a YouTube video that talks about how the geography of the US gets all messed up because of like DC. Because of the amount of cities added, it makes states bigger.
Yeah.
Because you got to consider how big Gotham is, so it's adding that much to Jersey, and then Metropolis, how big that is, it's adding to New York, which is already big. So
Yeah.
like you're stretching out the country basically.
Could you imagine New Jersey
Interesting.
having a city that's actually relevant like that? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess Penguin would be depicted as like a New Jersey kind of accent, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Assuming
James,
he's from there.
it's to the point where every Marvel character pretty much is set in New York, where you feel like they just kind of shit on the rest of America because they don't think they're like, the
Well,
rest of America's not
it's-
really worth it.
Well,
But
it's literally just because like Stanley he just wanted to write with like a setting that he was
New.
familiar with, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
literally where he was working. And
Yeah,
it just-
Stanley has said multiple times, like, I put him in New York because that's where I'm from. You know,
Yeah.
like
And yeah, now the problem is like literally almost nothing of consequence happens except for New York.
every
Yeah,
now and
New
again
York.
they'll put like Daredevil in San Francisco or Scarlet Spider in like Houston or some shit.
They put Venom in like Philadelphia for a bit.
Yeah, and it's
And
like for
San
the first
Francisco.
time in DC, in the DC stuff, James, they're finally putting the new Batman in New York. So Jace Fox, the
Okay.
second Batman, is based there. So they're like, oh, check it out, we're doing this, and it puts New York actually in the DC map for the first time really in ever at this point. But yeah, back to Penguin and stuff. But he is you could feel like he has a what do you call it? A reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Especially from like the way him and Batman, when they interact that first time, he's like, do you know who I am? And he's like, yeah, I do. And you're just like, oh my God. But you feel like he's known for a lot of shit compared to the way he is in comics, where in the comics, he literally just goes like, oh, who are you? And they go, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, okay, cool. Dude gets a phone call. Oh, fuck, why is my family dead? And he's like, yeah, you told me who you are. I'm the Penguin. I'm going to kill everyone you know. But he's like an ice cold killer. But that doesn't really, for the most part, do the killing himself. The whole thing is him. He has the mob, he has the henchmen, everything. But he's second fiddle to Falcone, and you feel that whole time like he does want to take over. He wants to grow. And the first opportunity he gets, he's like, yo, Carmine, you're going to die in Blackgate. You fucked. I'm going to take over, and this is all mine. And you even see it.
He
further.
literally, like, as Falcone is being taken away, literally shouts like, you fucking rat.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like Carmine calls him a gimp. And then he's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to fucking kill you. but he does such a good way of somehow representing a mobster that feels like he's from the 70s but still lives in the modern day and pulls that off amazingly. And I thought that was something that's just like, I didn't think that was possible, but they made it possible. Because you look at Gotham and it's not like Gotham TV show where I've said it before. I watched that show and I'm looking at the architecture, which is old. I'm looking at the cars, which are old, but I see modern guns and the phones are like flip phones. And I asked the question, I'm like, what the fuck? What year is it? I don't know what year it is in this fucking world. And they never tell you. And it's so confusing. Whereas here, you're like, oh, this is modern day. Like, this is current life. There's giant screens on in like the Times Square of Gotham, their version of Times Square. There's full on.
I think it's actually in the future from us.
Really?
Yeah, because I might be remembering wrong, but like there's a part where Catwoman's like, my mother died 20 years ago. And if you look at the tombstone, it says 2004. So if I remember correctly, they're technically in 2024.
Holy shit, so
weird.
that's what the future's like.
It rains all the time.
Oh my god.
I think she does say
Halloween outfits now too. I gotta say, those are dope.
But yeah, I think she does say her mom died like 20 years ago or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe I'm remembering something else, but I'm pretty sure that's what it said, because I know the tombstone definitely says she passed away in 2004.
All right. Anything else on the Penguin?
Nah, just again, surprisingly, well, like much better done than I thought he would be. Because, like, again, Colin Farrell is the Penguin. On paper, that sounds like an insanity.
Yeah, that is very true.
I think he's a character that I was like, Penguin's always been that character that always like slips under Batman, and then on top of that, I think like they did a nice balance of like comedy relief and actually having him integral to like the underground of Gotham.
Yeah, like yeah, talking about that, like the way he just like, that's the mayor. Oh my god, it is the mayor. And then like Batman fucking almost goes berserk on him, but like his full, like the car chase, you know, he's like, the way he even talks, he's like, I got you, and you're just like, oh my god, like you gotta love this. You love how he's such a threatening person. You love the fear he has though at that point where he's like, oh, I'm afraid of this Batman, like I can't believe it, but he's still fucking smart ass when like him and Gordon confront him and he's like, I thought you were both detectives. Oh, big whoops over here, like I can't believe you guys couldn't figure out El Rata Alada compared to La Rata Alada of like Spanish and shit, which was so good. But once again, just like Riddler, like looking at his previous iterations, you had 66 Penguin, which literally was the guy that went wah, 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 wah. And then like the late 80s or early 90s Batman Returns Penguin, which was Danny DeVito biting people's noses and being like, I'm from a sewer. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, he's also like in that movie, he's like a mutant or something.
Yeah,
like,
I mean his dad, dude, Pee-wee Herman didn't even want him. He fucking threw him into a well. Like
his dad was Pee-wee Herman. What?
Pee-wee
in
Herman,
Batman Returns, yeah.
To the point where they actually brought him back as Penguin's dad in Gotham. Same act. Pee-wee was in Gotham, and then he dies in there too. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, really good. And then we had, you know, multiple other characters, minor characters. The most notable, of course, being Alfred, played by Andy Serkis, who now has played a creepy mutated hobbit named Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He's played a monkey. He's played a bigger monkey. And he's King Kong. He was also that cook in King Kong. Not only was he the monkey, but he was the guy that gets eaten by the like thing that
I forgot he did the mocap for King Kong in that.
Yeah, he's Caesar, which Brandon and I remember distinctly. His best line in the first movie. No. So fucking when he
I forgot Matt Reeves directed those movies.
He directed 2 and 3. He did Rise and War of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw War for the Planet of the Apes.
Which makes sense. And his already pre-made relationship with Andy Serkis, plus Serkis already with his relationship with Warner from doing Lord of the Rings and stuff. And then even having him here, like he was in Marvel. He was
Claw.
Ulysses. Yeah, he was Ulysses Claw, and honestly,
Yeah.
for the brief time he was there, seemed like a more energetic, interesting looking villain until they killed him off way too soon. He could have actually been somewhat of entertaining value in that world, but whatever. Instead, we have him here as Alfred, and another different iteration, because we've had Master Bruce, I won't bury you like I buried your parents. We had fucking
My name is Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. Like,
That's like overacting to the max.
it's so good though. Michael Caine, who
The size of a tangerine.
he was a great Alfred for that trilogy, but we had Jeremy Ironside come in, and you're like, holy shit, this is gonna be fucking amazing. And for this little time he was there, he was so fucking good. And before that, we had, I forget what that dude's name was that played Alfred in all four like Burton Schumacher movies.
You mean the God damn it, what's his name?
It's been a while since I've watched those movies, but he always struck me as just
I'm
the butler.
I just do the butler thing.
As
Yeah.
opposed to like helping actually do Batman shit sometimes.
Yeah. Whereas Andy Serkis's Alfred, he's younger. You could tell he says, like, when he says circus, he meant the service. Like, he is an SAS soldier or former SAS operative. And he is very smart in this. Like, to the point where, Bruce comes in back from the mayor's murder, and he's deciphering the Riddler's message.
Yeah. Bruce didn't even
And-
tell him to do that. He just was like, I'll see if I can help out.
Yeah, he comes up and Alfred is literally decoding everything. Like, this is a very, like, he's the one that's more or less taught Bruce all of his combat skills. He is the one that prepped him to become Batman, and he seems the one that also taught him all the detective skills, because he's like, hey, check it out, I'm deciphering this, and you didn't think about this and this, but here's what I did to figure out what the other letters are in his language or his like code that he's been doing. And it's just like Gordon. Alfred and Gordon before are usually either support or second fiddle. Here they're front and center, getting shit done and getting their hands at least very involved in what's going on, at least until bombs say otherwise. But Brandon, did you see who it was for the
The
other movies?
actor? Yeah, it was Francis Michael Goff.
Okay.
So he's like one of those people that's just done like so many random things, but Alfred was towards the later end of his life because he died in like 2011.
I remember that.
But that was the guy that played Alfred in all four of the movies, which has that really random scene when we did a commentary where Alfred's just looking at his time in India.
What?
You don't remember that?
In which one? Batman Returns?
It was one of the. Which one was the one where Alfred's sick?
Oh, that was Batman and Robin, because that Mr. Freeze helps him.
Yeah,
I wasn't there for
it
that
was-
commentary.
Oh yeah. Huh.
Oh, that's
I was only there for Returns. I wasn't there for Forever or Robin.
yeah. It was just like it's really random. It's like Alfred just going through like pictures on a computer, and it's just like him in India. And I guess it was like when like just him being like occupying in there, like India or something. Like it's just like him just reminiscing over it, or I don't remember. It was something really random like that.
Master Bruce, my niece is coming to town. So good. Yeah, but this is a fun Alfred. How did you guys feel? Like, I know he's a lot different than what we're usually used to.
I mean, Alfred's always been one of those characters that honestly, like, he doesn't have to do much, just kind of be witty on screen or helpful. And this one does do that. And I mean, Andy Serkis is an amazing actor, but he's just kind of, this is him actually on the more calm down side of things.
Yeah.
Oh, like as an actor? Or
Well, compared to him as Claw, for sure.
oh yeah, very much. So.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go kill this guy's parents.
I made it rain. Oh.
I lost my arm and I don't care.
Yeah.
That was interesting. But yeah, I guess not really much to say. I think honestly more to say of him for what comes next, if anything. But I did appreciate his relationship with Bruce in this, where in the very beginning, Bruce even goes like, you're not my father, and he's like, you made that, like, I realized that very easily. and to the point where Alfred, gets taken out by the bomb and is hospitalized, and you have Bruce there, and Alfred's the one that defends his father and is pretty much his family, going like, hey, your family is a good family. There is just moments of weakness. They're human. They're not perfect, but they were very good compared to most other people in this city. And you get to enjoy like I guess very wholesome moment, considering like, the Burton Schumacher, the most you get between them is, oh shit, Alfred's sick, I gotta save him. And
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. Alfred's like sick and dying, and he's like looking at like his old like service photos, but of him in India. And then he like calls Bruce, and Bruce is like, "Don't bother me right now." And Alfred's just like this old frail man dying, reminiscing about his time when he served.
He's like, not now, Alfred. I have to deal with this bat credit card. Same movie. And then, the Michael Caine Alfred is pretty much like, I'm not going to bury you like I buried your parent. Like, he's very much just like, he is, for the most part, very witty. He gives Bruce shit, but otherwise, like, I don't think you ever see them really embrace. Do you? They never like have any physical contact that I can recall.
Maybe in the hospital when Alfred wakes up, like they might have like held hands or something, but
well, no, I mean Michael Caine's version.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. There's never really any full physical interaction, whereas in this one, yeah, they hold hand, like you feel a more close, intimate relationship of like he feels like a father to him, whether he didn't want to say it or not. Like you do, the minute he says, "You're not my father," you instantly go, "This dude's this," like you feel like he's his father more so than the other movies have portrayed him as that type of parental figure to him. Especially like when he goes like, I did my best, but I wasn't a father. I know how to like raise you and stuff. And Bruce is like, you were there. That's all that mattered and stuff. But yeah, it was good.
Well, that's always made the best dynamic between like Batman and Alfred, is like the father figure aspect to it all.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that like it writes itself.
Yeah, it works so well. And then of course, for those that don't know, in the comics, he's dead. Like Alfred is no longer alive, which is
he's still dead, huh?
Yeah, he's still dead. I don't like, that's the thing. Like it feels like a version where you're like, there's no way so far to bring him back at this point. It's just very much like you're seeing Bruce without Alfred, and the thing is like you don't expect Alfred to come back because you haven't gotten the full standalone Bruce yet. Like you're getting some of it, but you're still waiting to see more and more of it. So there's a lot more to tell before they even would think about bringing Alfred back. So I don't see him coming back for multiple more years at the very least, which is kind of crazy, honestly. Other characters that I guess more or less stood out. John Turturro as Carmine Falcone.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be I always remember him as like a comedic actor, but like he did pretty good in this movie.
Yeah, right? Like that's the thing. He is usually like the funny, like at least in a funny role. Like like I got almost whiplash going from watching him in Severance, which is, I mean, not like a funny show, but like his character is definitely supposed to be kind of like goofy and kind of funny. And then see him as Carmine Falcone, and he's just like, yeah, I murdered a dude for your parents. What up?
Yeah. He felt so like it's funny because I do remember him casting him as Carmine Falcone, and I was like, that's so interesting. And then it leaves my head completely. I get into the theater and watching the movie, and I forget that that's John Turturro. It just like completely left my mind. And I'm like, oh, this is so good. Who is that?
Seeing him in 44 Below was like it was weird because I was like, I know it's John Turturro, but it's not John Turturro right now.
That's the Jesus from Big Lebowski.
That's what I was gonna say when he's like, he's my father, and it's like, that's your father? Nobody fucks with the Jesus, and you're like, yeah, that's your father.
It's also like that Italian car in Cars.
Is that him?
Oh,
yeah, the one that's like in the because they go to like Italy, right?
Yeah, the one that's in charge. He is like the little sidekick guy,
and he's got like his mom watching or whatever.
Yeah,
that's him.
Oh
it
my
says
god,
right there, John Turturro. Yeah,
Holy
I remember
shit.
hearing his voice, thinking that.
That's crazy. Holy shit, I can't believe that. But it's interesting because, you know, we've gotten two, I guess you could say the two iterations of Falcone we've gotten has been what in Batman Begins, where he's like, these walls are too small, oh my god, and then Scarecrow's like, look at my mask, fuck you, and he's like, oh fuck. Like, he's very short in there, and even though Nolan like brings in the crime families like the Falcones and Maronis, they're still like minor players in the whole movie, and they're not really that relevant. The only other time they were really something was in Gotham, where Falcone is actually like a more prominent player for multiple seasons. Or like, I want to say 1 or 2 seasons before he's like gone for a majority of it, comes back and like gets killed off. But he's like this respectable elderly guy, and of course, like nothing's beat the comic version of him. Like having him in the Long Halloween, especially in that animated movie, has been phenomenal. And it's amazing because you never really get full proper representation of the mobsters in the Batman world that are all like all the costumes and crazy Arkham guys. You're like, oh right, it all starts with organized crime. And having him be so prominent in this to the point where he's like, at a certain point, you sort of for a split second forget about the Riddler and go, Carmine Falcone, target number 1, Selena Kyle's main villain, but also, or like antagonist, but also at a certain point, like Batman's Bane, because not Bane of like he's Bane, but like Bane of existence of like, hey, Maroni killed your father and mother. Oh no, it was Carmine Falcone that did it. And they even like reference the whole thing of like, in the comics, like Thomas does operate on him when he's younger. Carmine's father brings him in and goes, holy shit, Mr. Wayne, please save my son. And Bruce watches from the stairs. That is a thing straight from the comics. And that was phenomenal that they did that in here. I mean, not that they showed it, but they talk about it. And you're like, oh my God, they're really just like, you're feeling alive in this world. And you feel like Carmine Falcone is an important character and not just some like side guy that just gets killed off. Like you feel it when he dies, because the way he looks at Batman and Batman looks at him, you're just like, oh my God, like that just happened. They killed off Carmine Falcone. John Turturro's dead.
Didn't he get killed off in the Nolan trilogy, or am I tripping?
Yeah, that's what no. He just gets when he gets captured by Batman, he's like, that's why he goes to Scarecrow comes in as himself,
Yeah,
and then
scares him. Yeah,
and he basically goes, this man's clearly insane, and that's the last you see of him because he just got like fear gas, so he's like fucked up in the head after. Yeah, but yeah, no,
yeah,
such a great job. I haven't seen that movie in forever. I don't know how I remember this shit. That's pretty much, I would say, all the characters. Are there any other characters you guys wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, everybody pretty much hits the nail on the head with their roles, and everybody does a good job. Like, I don't think there's a single bad character in the movie.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Bringing in the influences to this movie, and of course, starting off with the comics, we get, I think, more than we've gotten from any other comic book movie having full influence. Because the thing with movies that are based off comics are, half the time, or honestly, it feels like majority of the time, the writers and the directors never read the source material. They're just kind of like, good enough, it's fine. They got the outfit right. We're good to go. I don't know why I'm from New York, but this is how it's gonna be. And you're like, okay, well, that was cool. I appreciate their iteration, but it doesn't feel like they've taken the full meanings of these books and put them to the test in here. And even looking at the other versions of Batman, like Long Halloween is used in The Dark Knight, which is what I would consider probably my favorite Batman story, is Long Halloween. And it's done well. It's done okay, for like more or less. Like there's parts of it that are taken and used for it. But in here, they fucking use it. Like I see the Long Halloween, I see Year One, I see 0 Year, I see No Man's Land, I see Year Two. I think there are a couple other books, but like you get all Catwoman When in Rome, like you get Dark Victory. All of these different things come in and are all each taken pieces of to properly make something that feels like a legitimate comic book movie that has influence from a comic book. And you go, oh yes, that's from this book. I can say it without a doubt. It's very visible. It's very clear that they've done this. like things like I said, year one, you have a young Batman that is still new, but you look at Catwoman and she's like exactly like that. The monologuing is very akin to year one. Year two is the same thing in terms of like his relationship to the cops. He's just getting acclimated to them. They're just getting acclimated to him. Everything is very uneasy. It's more so making way to show all the corruption, and you're getting that too. Long Halloween and Dark Victory are both murder books, and Long Halloween being like the crime families being killed off, whereas Dark Victory is all the crooked cops and politicians are being killed off. And you get both of those kind of put together in it a little bit with the murderer, who are two different murderers actually, but neither of which are the Riddler that they kind of, substitute in this one. But Long Halloween and Catwoman When in Rome explore Selena Kyle's relationship to Carmine Falcone, that he's her father. And it's very light from the When in Rome stuff, but more heavily from the Long Halloween. And it's very interesting that they utilize that. And then, of course, the destruction, the potential like, oh, this is Gotham that's like kind of fucked, is from like 0 Year and No Man's Land, where 0 Year, there's like a hurricane that separates the city from everything else. And Riddler takes his advantage and takes over the city, which we don't really see in that, but he's the cause this time. And like the breaking of the seawalls. And we see that like now we're kind of getting that the 0 Year cause, but the no man's land after effect of it, where the city's getting divided up and everyone's going to take a piece and it's going to be fought over now, besides like all the citizens of Gotham being the victims at this point. But we get all of those at once. And the fact that it took all these pieces together and made such a prominent film, I think, is just like the best adapted. And I say that correctly, right? Adaptation. Yeah, adaptation of comic book ever in a film. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, that was long.
You explained all the references there. I think just to back it up, I mean, yeah, it's more When in Rome meets I wouldn't say year two. It's based in the second year. It's like if there was a official sequel to year one with the same team.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like, with a little bit of hints of like Long Halloween and all that you already said. But I think the movie goes to show it works because it's not trying to adapt a specific story. It just takes key plot points from certain like other stories,
yeah,
and applies those to create its own plot. It does that thing where it's creating its own version of the character, but it's not warping things like too much to the point where it's unrecognizable. It's just doing it differently, and it picks and chooses what it wants to adapt. And then by doing so, it almost feels like Matt Reeves wrote the script and said, okay, I'm going to write this script and see what stories align with my plot points and use those, but I'm not going to just adapt one book. So I'm going to take pieces. And that's what the movie feels like. But it's all these pieces that add up to a good movie.
Yeah. And just making sure, too, for those that don't know, Matt Reeves not only directed, but also wrote, or I guess co-wrote with Peter Craig for this. So which I always appreciate it. Like, I love it when, you see a director you really like on a movie, but when you see a director that was also the writer for the movie, it feels like there's extra care put into it, because it feels like it's something they're just like, it's their baby. And you feel like it's going to potentially be a good movie because they want to raise their kid correctly. And that's what we see here is Matt Reeves made a very nice baby and everyone's happy. And he's like, look at my child, all of you look. And he's at the top of the Lion King rock. I forget what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. Bride Rock. That's the one. Yeah. Bride Rock. Not only did it have all these comic references, and I don't know if there were more, like there could be some, because I haven't read all the Batman books, and at this point I think of like some of the older things pre Battle for the Cowl and stuff, or I guess pre Grant Morrison. Brandon, you probably have actually at this point probably read more than me. But the films that had relevance to this too. Like, I don't know all of them. I'm pretty sure there's probably an article somewhere that actually even says, like, if you search up the Batman film influences, you'd probably come up with a good list or something. But I could, at least from watching it myself without looking at something, I could say probably 3 movies that easily influence it, one of which being Seven.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, David Finch movie.
Mostly for the serial killer stuff.
Actually, not even that. Well, that, but also the relationship between Batman and Jim Gordon is the akin to the relationship between Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, where Brad Pitt is like the loose cannon. He doesn't really care who he's pissing off, especially if it's other cops. And Morgan Freeman's like more like, hey, listen, man, you gotta meet us halfway here. Like, you gotta understand, like, he's more calm and collected. And you do get that, especially in the best iteration. Like, the 2 things of that is you see the way those 2 interact together, and you get that from all their different crime solving, like solving the riddles in each iteration. But they're kind of like, I guess you could say, good cop, bad cop with Penguin, or more so the interaction with the cops at the precinct when they're more or less interrogating Batman or trying to like take off his mask, and he's questioning them, they're questioning him, and Gordon's trying to calm the whole matter down. Like, I got so much Seven vibes from that. Besides that, you get Goodfellas and The Godfather, and very much from The Mob, very much specifically from Penguin, but you get that feeling of like, I need some respect around here. Like, you get that full on.
I mean, I definitely see Godfather from like Carmine.
Yeah,
he's like got his own office like at the top of the building, where like, you know, surrounded by guards. You know, you got to come to him for favors and shit like that.
And Penguin's got that Joe Pesci feel a little bit, I feel like, more or less. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I got some like Zodiac vibes.
Oh yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that one, it's hard because it's like that. I feel like you get from the movie, but also from the real, like, that's more as well as real life. Considering Zodiac is,
it's like
especially for us,
the true case,
because it's a San Francisco thing. He was the Zodiac killer was a serial killer in San Francisco history in the 70s. And I don't know if you actually, real fast, guys, before we continue this, like, my parents used to tell me they were freaked out. The whole city was freaked out when this dude was on the loose. And it was a scary time. And my mom used to say, like, it was actually visible fear. You were afraid when you went out. You didn't want to go out at night. Did your parents ever say anything to you about that, or ever like reflect on that kind of thing?
I don't know if I ever asked.
No, I mean, my family has been here since the 50s, and they never really talked about it.
Okay. I would say,
I can't say maybe they remember hearing about it, but I don't know if they were actually like had a reaction to it, you know.
But, you know, just food for thought, something to think about, because that's some rich city history there, for better or for worse.
But yeah, that was like what I got a vibe of, was that, and like, I don't want to say True Detective as well, but more of like, what did they always say Batman was? It was like Sherlock Holmes combined with Zorro.
Yeah, to the point where even Penguin calls him Zorro.
Yeah, so it definitely gives you like some Sherlock Holmes vibes too.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting too. I mean, we already knew, especially back when the movie was still being made, like, Matt Reeves just came out and flat out was like, yeah, I got some Zodiac inspirations here. And that is, at least for the murder portion, is the most prominent portion of it, that you definitely just, you feel a combo of Kevin Spacey's fucked up. I forget do you remember what Kevin Spacey's character's name was in Seven? Was it just John Doe?
Seven.
It was John Doe, right? I think it was John Doe.
I've never seen Seven.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. It's a really good movie, Brandon. You should totally watch it. But it's like a combo of, it's Zodiac meets John Doe, and that's the Riddler, except a more vibrant of like potential for outcry screams out of nowhere or over emotional shit that happens. Otherwise, I don't know, was there anything else of references you guys felt before moving on?
Not that I could think of. I mean, we already brought up the major ones.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's more there, but
Yeah, definitely. But it's interesting seeing that, like, I guess looking at other movies or other comic book movies, you don't really think about that, right? The thought never really enters your head. You just go, oh, cool, the movie comes out, I watched it, it was fun, I had my entertainment. The only thing you think of maybe is if it's like from this specific comic book that the title is literally named after, probably. So you don't really think anything more than that, where this one really goes like, hey, want to do some fun research. And it does make me like, I do after this want to go and see what else potentially inspired it, and then just go watch those, just so I could see what more like molded it and see where like it fits in, going, oh, I see where this movie helped create this scene or this specific character interaction or something. That's one thing I think this film got me really excited about, was doing that kind of thing and making me feel more research driven, if anything. Moving on to what we heard instead of what we saw. That music, holy shit. I know there was multiple themes here that were very interesting. We had the Batman theme, which was so simplistic yet so effective that it pretty much stuck in my head, and I'm pretty sure you guys got it stuck too, I assume, right?
It hasn't been like consistently stuck in my head, but it does pop in there every once in a while, just randomly.
the soundtrack I thought was really good. It takes a different approach where it's matching the tone of the movie, so it's not very bombastic Hans Zimmer,
Yeah.
but it's still good. It's just different.
It's
It's
not
interesting
Tumblr
that they
car
used-
chase.
Yeah, it's interesting that they actually put some Nirvana in there.
Yeah, which was really random, I thought, but it seemed to have worked.
Yeah.
It does work, especially at the end where he's just like, doesn't it play when he does the second monologue? And
Yeah.
he's like
think
carrying that
so.
woman to the helicopter, and you're just like, oh my god, it's so good. But you know, his theme is a combo. So we have that like very much like simplistic tone of like bum 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 bum, and you're just like, oh, I live by this song now. I mean, at least I do. I'm just like, it's just in my head. They're 24/7. I'm just like lying awake at night, like, yes, I shall become bat. But the other half of it is very noble, is my best definition for it. Like, you feel like, I don't know if you've heard, like, have you guys listened to the Batman track of that specific song? It's like 7 minutes long or 6 minutes or
No.
something.
No, to be honest, I haven't. No.
I could easily see if I could jog your memory. It's the scene where him and Catwoman are riding their motorcycles at the end away and then like split off, but like they're like going through the graveyard and stuff. But it's like a very noble tone where you do feel like they put the reference, they emphasize the knight in Dark Knight, where you're like, oh yeah, he's a noble knight, he's doing these good things, and he's very heroic. Like, it feels like heroic music in the first half. And you actually, it gives almost like a studio tone as well. Like, it almost slightly reminded me of like something you'd hear when the Fox music comes on, where it's like it's like that with the trumpets, and they somehow pull that off, and it makes me think of like a mix of like, I see the WB symbol but in the best way possible, as well as cool nights and just feeling good. And then you get that first half, and then it stops, and then you get the like bum 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 bum, and it's so, I don't know, it's very, I guess, like enchanting to me, I guess is the best word for it. It just makes you fall in love with it. And you know, you look at all the other Batman themes, the most prominent being the animated series theme that you get from like the show and Mask of Phantasm, and it's, you know, very choir oriented. You get the more like action driven Dark Knight music where it's like bum bum bum, and you're like, oh shit. And then the insane Ben Affleck music where he's killing people in his Batmobile, and you're like, oh Jesus Christ. But you know, each one has their own theme, but this one feels so, yeah, it feels quieter, it feels just simpler and not as intricate, yet somehow puts a different message where you feel like you're listening to this and you go, yeah, I hear fear, I hear detective, I hear dark, and it works so fucking well. We also got the Cattlemen theme, which, you know, sounds very like silky sly, where it's like a violin almost. I don't know. Brandon, you're much better with music than I am, so I don't know if you noticed something more than I did with it.
Let me see. Let me see if I have it on. Because I was paying attention to the soundtrack, but I've only seen the movie once.
Mhm. Other than that, like the other, I guess like the three big themes is Batman, Catwoman, and then the Riddler. And the Riddler is
Oh
just
yeah,
like,
okay, I do remember this. Sorry,
okay,
I was just looking it up
yeah,
on YouTube. They changed it up because a lot of Catwoman themes that I've noticed in like the games and the other movies is like a piano that kind of like plays like sporadically in the background. And this one, it's like fully orchestrated.
it does
I
feel
don't
like
know.
that. Does there feel like it's an emphasis on strings?
There is like a perfect example of how it used to be is if you look at Dark Knight Rises, the first scene with Selena Kyle, just listen to that scene and that sums up like every Catwoman soundtrack ever.
Yeah, that's,
Um,
that's about right. Where she's like, I didn't
it-
think it was unbreakable, and then like, or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and it sounds like you're playing Breath of the Wild. But yeah, no, her theme actually feels like it's more fleshed out
Yeah.
in this movie.
And then this one is the hardest to remember, but the Riddlers is very just like dark and just unhinging. Like you're just like, oh fuck. Like I think it does play the first time, maybe when he's right behind the mayor. Or no, he's looking, I think he's looking at the mayor from like across the roof. Like he's watching his son, and then he's looking up at like the entrance and stuff. But like it's just like, oh, creepy murder. It's like very much like, oh, this is creepy murder music. Like this is Zodiac soundtrack right here.
Basically.
Yeah. But I thought
That's the most memorable song for me.
the Riddler.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they do a good job with it. Overall, how did you guys feel about the soundtrack? Like, is it something that like, I know obviously, like I said, it's very much like very down, it's very low, it's not like up, it's not like blasting in your face like you would normally get from a comic book movie.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, as long as the soundtrack matches the tone of the scenes that they're trying to set, like, then I'm happy. And this soundtrack did that.
Yeah. And let me double check what the composer's name was. It was Michael Gia something. I can't remember what his full name was. It was Michael Giacchino. Giacchino? I think he's Italian. I'm pretty sure. Is he Italian?
Let's see, what was his name?
Oh,
I
this
think
dude's
it would be a Gia Caccino. No.
He did Coco? Huh. He did Spider-Man Homecoming, Coco, Jurassic World. He did multiple Planet of the Apes movies, Star Trek, Incredibles, Medal of Honor, and Call of Duty, or multiple of those titles, apparently. That's very interesting. I didn't know he did those. I actually kind of want to see which ones specifically he did, because that has... Oh, he did Medal of Honor Frontline. Oh, yo, this dude... Oh, that's what I remembered about it. Holy shit. Okay, actually, really fast. So, one of my favorite songs from a video game is called the Knights of Arnhem, which is from a level of Medal of Honor Frontline, where it's Operation Market Garden, and you have all these British soldiers getting killed by like Nazi forces and stuff, and it's very sad music. And there are actual tones of that in this movie, in the soundtrack, with like, I think Batman's theme and stuff. Like I kept feeling that piece of music in there, and I was like, why do I keep hearing something from a video game? And I was losing my mind, and seeing that he did the same exact music from that game, just like, oh my god, that actually is so exciting to hear, like, or find out. Like that's really fucking cool. Yeah, sorry, just a small thing there.
I would have never made the connection.
I know
it's
you have to be crazy like me. That's just how you do it. Dressed up like a green guy with question marks. But Matt Reeves, the dude directed a couple movies about monkeys.
Imps.
Yes, chimps, space
Apes.
apes, if you will. Gorillas with guns, monkeys with guns. They all got guns. The orangutan's super smart. He's like a professor orangutan. But did you ever think that the guy that did like the apes movies would be directing a Batman movie that he also wrote and somehow did a phenomenal job with?
I mean, you can say the same thing about the guy that wrote Hangover that made a Joker movie.
Is that the same
Oh,
guy?
yeah, huh.
Oh shit, was that? Oh my god.
It's Todd Phillips or whatever
Holy
his name
shit,
is.
that's pretty funny.
I'm pretty sure that's him. Let's see now.
They're like, you wrote The Hangover. What are you gonna do now? I'm gonna have Joaquin Phoenix shoot Robert De Niro. Oh, okay, cool.
Let's see.
But he did
Yep, Todd Phillips.
that's so interesting.
Yeah, he did Hangover, War Dogs,
Why is that so familiar?
Old School, Road Trip. He was a writer on Borat.
Road Trip?
Yeah.
Shit. Oh my. Oh,
Due
yeah,
Date.
that makes sense with Hangover actually.
He's done a lot of random things, but he did Joker. You never would have saw that coming.
You would not at all. Not so far. But Matt Reeves looked at source material. He got so many influences from comics and movies and wrote, like I said, co-wrote and then directed this film. And it was so good. And I was actually reading an article about him talking about Marvel movies. And he's like, I don't think I could ever do it because he talked about how everything's so established, where it kind of takes away certain creative freedoms, which is very real there, especially because we've seen I feel like more than one set of creatives get taken off a project because there were creative differences with like the overarching web, whether it was who was supposed to direct Ant-Man? He did Shaun of the Dead.
Edgar Wright.
Yeah, Edgar Wright was supposed to do Ant-Man and he left. Or like even with Star Wars, Phil Lord and Chris Miller were supposed to do Solo, and then they got booted off, and instead it was Ron Howard and stuff. Like we've seen different changes like that because they're like, it doesn't fit our overall plan. And even though you're a director, you're not going to be fully creative. You're just going by what we're telling you. And even when he came to WB, Matt Reeves was like, you want me to do what? Oh, this Ben Affleck Batman movie? I thought he was going to do it. And it's like, no, Ben Affleck's not directing anymore. Do you want to do it? And he's like, it doesn't fit with what I could potentially do. Like I could try it, but I don't think I'd do a good job because it's not something I created. And it made perfect sense. It's like, it's not something he's done, he worked on, and it feels weird taking someone else's baby and just kind of like taking care of it and stuff. And instead we see him get more or less, I think you guys would agree with me, like a lot of creative freedom here compared to like other things we've seen, considering like, I mean, yeah, Todd Phillips did the Joker movie, and that probably, you know, they're like, hey, you want a crazy R movie that's fucking insane and Robert De Niro gets shot in the head? Oh, okay, sure, yeah. But here it's like, hey, what if we did a Batman that has like Riddler, but Riddler doesn't look like Riddler at all, and he's actually like the Zodiac killer, and Colin Farrell is a crazy penguin man that literally looks nothing like Colin Farrell, and all this other shit. And they're like, okay. And he got to do it and pulled that shit off so well. It's something we're seeing with him. We got to see with James Gunn, and we're seeing these directors all of a sudden get kind of free reign, or at least more free reign that you wouldn't see from WB previously, and just in general from other studios potentially, depending on what the IP or license is, because they don't want to maybe go too far off the rails or away from maybe their general direction they want it to be. But did you guys feel there was anything extra special about like Reeves doing this, or kind of the pattern we're seeing here with him and James Gunn, and what it's going to lead forward to more so of, because I do have something about like the future of filmmaking for DC, but if you guys have other stuff first.
I think the biggest thing to take from it is that when you allow a writer, director, producer, whoever have creative freedom, it tends, with WB, it seems to go both ways, because I don't think the Snyder Cut is good at all, but that's like his full vision.
Yeah.
But then you have cases with like Todd Phillips, Matt Reeves, or James Gunn, they do what they want apparently with nobody getting involved and just letting them make the movie or show that they want to make, and it works. And I think what it's proven to show is that standalone stories work for WB a lot more than a shared universe. And it's because these stories aren't based off of shared universe. They're just individual one and done kind of stories where they tell the story they want and they end it. And I think that's what makes it work better. And I think that's the path they're going to take moving forward. Now we know that they're not going to do that because WB likes to screw themselves all the time.
All the
And
time.
they're gonna milk these movies for what they are, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get sequels to them. But if they know any better, they know not to be so involved with the sequels.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen already, like, I guess, in terms of standalone movies kind of working, or connected movies that are kind of being utilized as standalone at the same time, but still part of the overarching world working out so far, akin to Aquaman and Shazam. And those have both worked. And, you know, who honestly, I feel like a lot of people are probably looking forward to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Like, you would never hear, oh, Aquaman's getting a sequel. And also, hey, people are looking forward to an Aquaman sequel. What the fuck? Like, what an awesome world. What the fuck? But it does put to mind, like, we're gonna see two things. One, potentially and hopefully more directorial freedom for these other DC EU movies specifically. Like, we're getting Black Adam next, and I'm pretty sure the freedom of that isn't of, hey, The Rock said something, we got to do it. Well, what happens if not? Oh, he's probably going to beat us up because he's the fucking Rock. But you know, the Flash, that's a harder to say thing. But Aquaman for sure, I feel like with James Wan, you feel like he's gotten to do a lot more of his own shit, considering his past in filmmaking with horror and stuff. But otherwise, we're going to see more interesting singular takes like this. Like, we've seen the Joker, we've seen the Batman, and pretty much there's two potential takes on Black Superman coming. The one I'm actually excited for is the Michael B. Jordan's Val Zod series or movie that's going to be coming eventually. And you can feel like that's probably going to have its own creativity in it from Michael B. Jordan. Like, he is someone that likes to create his own stuff, and I think he could do a good job with this. What was something else? I think there's going to be other takes with other characters that maybe not so much will be outside of the DCU, just because, like, they're kind of hitting all of the biggest ones right now. Like, Gal Gadot's successful enough that they may not want another version of Wonder Woman out there, and having already this many Batman is probably enough for them, and the Superman as well. So we're kind of more or less probably reaching the limit. But now that they've tested it with this, yeah, I think they will be going more like, oh, what can we do with other characters within the DCU that we could do this with? And I think two prime examples of what we might get from that is Batgirl and Blue Beetle. Seeing as, like, the casting and the directorial teams for that are much different than what we normally get for a superhero movie, where it's very, I would say, actually, it seems very Latino, like, or at least very, honestly, more or less brown, which we don't really get to see that often, which I'm very appreciative of personally. But yeah, it's interesting to see all that. And I guess moving on from there, last two things here, one of which is probably the only big negative we have, I think, collectively. I don't think I've heard one person that liked to see that what they saw here was a certain clown being revealed for the sequel. And we're getting yet another Joker in a Batman movie.
I
The
don't
worst
know.
part about this movie is that they put the Joker in it. And I think this is what really holds it back. Because it just goes to show that it's either Matt Reeves really wants to tell a Joker story because everybody wants to tell a Joker story, or WB is like, put the character in the movie.
Yeah,
because
That's what it felt
Joker
like to me.
makes
it felt
yeah,
like
Joker
WB.
makes sales, and I'm so sick of it. It's just like, we get it. He's the biggest villain in the world. Move on. He had his own movie already. Use the
Yeah.
other characters. Like,
He lit-
fucking Christ.
We're basically getting kind of almost like 2 to 3 concurrent Jokers. Like, you have Jared Leto, you
Yeah.
have freaking Joaquin Phoenix, and now what's his face, Barry Keoghan, which we've seen in Dunkirk, who literally is just a kid that dies from being pushed onto the ground, and he plays Droog in the Eternals, which ironically actually was probably the best character in that movie, but that movie was very boring.
Plus the dude who
it was
played
very
the
average.
Joker in Gotham.
Yeah, who isn't called Joker?
Oh, that
It's
was
just-
Jerome.
That's what's his name from from
Jedi
Fallen
Fallen Order
Order.
and
Yeah.
Shameless. Yeah, that's fuck. Anyway,
So is this they're milking it, and I'm sick of it. It's just
yeah.
like stop with the Joker, and it's just like we get it. You need to sell seats or sell tickets so people can get hyped for the second one. But like,
Yeah.
there's other characters. I don't know. It really pissed me off because I'm just like I'm done. This is every single Batman movie, every single Batman story. It comes back to Joker.
Yeah, whether it's Batman 66, Batman 89, Dark Knight, Suicide Squad, BVS, kind of more or less, Joker, and now here, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like he is there no matter what, and you can even see like we've talked about in the comics, like he's very prevalent in fucking Suicide Squad comics, or he has his own title right now, which actually ironically is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, but that's more of the Commissioner Gordon side of things. It's overkill. It's so much overkill. And you know, we may complain about Batman overkill more or less in many different mediums, but right now, you know, he's being done so fucking well, and we have no complaints, especially because this is the movie we've always wanted, more or less. And with Joker though, it's just so tiring because Batman has the biggest rogues gallery in
I'd
existence.
say more iconic.
Yeah.
Next
And
to Spider-Man.
very much so. And he has so many villains, some that are more, you know, colorful, some that are more supernatural, some that are literal fucking assassins or super powered and shit. There's so many different types of villains that he has that like it has almost like different fan bases because they're different genres of Batman practically. And looking at this, like we pretty much talked about, there's not much else to say about Joker. There really isn't. But looking forward, like we've already heard what Pattinson and Reeves want as villains in potential future movies, and we can imagine what we want for villains in potential movies. And you know, we've heard from Matt Reeves, and he said it would be really cool to do his own take on Mr. Freeze. And I thought, you know, Schwarzenegger didn't even come to mind, but like I thought about it and I'm like, dude, this is the guy that just made Riddler the Zodiac Killer. I can imagine Mr. Freeze being a legit guy who takes people and freezes them alive. And you're just like, oh God, this is horrifying how he did it. Like, I don't imagine like a crazy freeze gun, but like he puts them in freezers or something. Like it could be a crazy fucking another murder case where it's like, this dude calls himself Mr. Freeze because all of his victims are frozen alive, and it sounds insane.
I mean,
and yeah,
if we want to get into like what might be coming next, because that seems like kind of where we're going with this.
Yeah, no, pretty much.
Like there's only I shouldn't say only. There are definitely like some of Batman's like rogues gallery villains that would fit in this kind of more grounded world better than others. Mm-hmm. Like I would love to see Clayface in a movie, but like that's not going to really fit in this world. But like one that, you know, I think would fit absolutely perfectly is Hush. Like,
oh dude,
Hush and I've heard people say Court of Owls.
Yeah,
Court of Owls is the other one that came to mind. It's just like one thing I liked so much about the Hush storyline was just like how it was personally focused at Bruce Wayne and not necessarily just Batman. Because like it, you know, there's like some dude is going around leaving dead bodies with like pieces of faces missing, which is already horrifying enough. And then when he shows up, like, and he finally takes off the bandages off his face, like he looks like Bruce Wayne. And you're just like, what the fuck? And you find out it's like an old friend of his, Bruce Wayne's, who's just like kind of like a darker version of him, who like always wished his parents would have died or something like that.
He killed his parents.
Yeah, and it's like Thomas Elliott, that's his name.
Yeah, Thomas Elliott.
It's just like it's such an interesting storyline, and like one of the things that this movie did really well with the Riddler was like tell a story that was much more personally connected to the Waynes than I would have expected from a Riddler like focused movie. And so if they want to keep going with like the more, you know, personal stories, like Hush could absolutely work.
Yeah. And I mean, they even say it in the movie when he's like, hush money or something. Like, he says hush in it. and you're just like, oh shit. And you don't think about it for a second, but it works so well because of who they say with it, which is the reporter's last name is Elliot. And you're like, oh, I was in the theater the first time hearing that, and I was like, oh my god, they could do Hush, because it works so well, just like the Riddler. The Riddler is an orphan that's a victim of the system, and that's very personal to Gotham. Thomas Elliot is then instead a victim specifically of the Waynes and Falcones. Like,
Yeah.
he is, because of Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Elliot's dad is dead. And it's a different take, but it's something where you could see that. I wouldn't potentially say in the next movie, but in 2 movies, in the 3rd movie, I can easily imagine later on, you have now a more established Batman. This Batman is good with the cops. He's good with the people. He is very much like, I've built myself up a very strong persona in the city. Criminals fear me and people love me, or basically look to me for hope. Bruce Wayne is now the same thing. He is a man who is uplifting the city. He is supporting the city. The city is prospering with his philanthropy. Thomas Elliot comes, I know who you are. I know Bruce Wayne is Batman. You are the reason my life got fucked up, or your father is. Because of that, and I know who you are, I will hit you at every point that matters to you, whether it is the Wayne Foundation, whether it's what I've done for Gotham, whether it is my relationship with Alfred, Selena Kyle, anyone else I've made friends with, Gordon. And you could see that whole thing unraveling, where Hush is basically he's the like final villain of Bruce Wayne. Like, I
Absolutely
easily see that. And there's so much he can do. And just like in the Hush story, he puppeteers the other villains. He puppeteers Joker, Poison Ivy, Riddler, more or less. Who also figures out Bruce Wayne's Batman and then goes, I have brain cancer, fuck. But like, he is one of my favorite. He is my top 2 villains easily, is Hush, because of like the way they personalize that. And not like, this is the one time I feel like in a Batman movie where we could potentially see a character that's more or less obscure to the average person, where the average person literally just knows 4 people, or 5 if you count Catwoman, Joker, Penguin, Riddler, and Two-Face, and they go, that's it. And maybe Mr. Freeze, because I saw Schwarzenegger that one time.
Yeah.
But like, he finally can be on screen, and it would be phenomenal. Otherwise, Robert Pattinson said The Court of Owls, which, I think
the other one that popped to mind was Zaz. Zaz could fit in this kind of world.
Yeah, Zaz is very easy, because Zaz can easily be a minor villain.
Yeah.
And it's a dude that scars himself. And in the fucking city with Zodiac the Riddler, Zaz works very well.
Mm-hmm.
But Pattinson said Court of Owls, and Scott Snyder's run of Court of Owls is, I consider, one of the best Batman runs I've seen, at least in those couple volumes of it. And I've always loved the Court of Owls because of like their involvement in history, and I love history is a big thing I'm always into. So I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. But thinking of like the whole thing where, who was it? Mackenzie's like, hey, this is bigger than anything. Like, Carmine Falcone owns the city, but you can always imagine like it's bigger than this. And you think, oh, what's bigger than that? Oh, the Court of Owls, the people that are like the super 1%, the ones that control everything. And especially in a day and age where there's a lot of, distrust and hate towards the 1% to those that profit off of the weak, or not the weak, but, those that make less. And having villains that are literally the wealthy can really work as well, whether it be that working in tandem with Hush in a 3rd movie, or being put into a 2nd movie and being like, yo, yeah, this is dope, but like, Joker's just the red herring, or he's not even the main villain. And it's like, oh, it's really this court the whole time. We unleashed this fucking psycho clown because, whatever, we have our own like overall ideas of what we can do in this world, or in the city. And you've been like working too well, Bruce Wayne. You're lifting too much of the people, where we can't have that because it ruins our own profits. And the Batman is also fucking up the other businesses we have. They can easily be prominent here. And like I said, I'm just excited because 2 types of villains that are my favorites can finally be put like this, and it's so exciting to see. But yeah, Freeze, Zaz, Court of Owls, Tommy Elliott. Anyone else you guys think would be working well for this?
I just think Court of Owls are the best pick for the next movie, just because I agree with that. Only because they seem the most believable in that world.
Yeah. Could you
he
imagine
already
their design of a Talon?
could be cool. It would be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that'd be the next best pick for characters that really got in spotlight. There's only been 2 appearances of Court of Owls, the animated movie and the Gotham Knights game that hasn't even come out yet.
No, they were also in Gotham. They had those Party City masks.
Oh, with Gotham as well.
Yeah, it's straight up, James. Their masks were straight from Party City. It was just like, yeah, the Court of Owls. I'm like, I thought you were rich. You couldn't afford a mask. That was $2.99, you bastards. But yeah, so there's all these villains they could do. How do you guys feel about Bruce Wayne's relationship in the future with Alfred, with Gordon, like, or the GCPD, kind of like seeing those growths happen? Because obviously, like I said, we could see a Bruce Wayne that's going to be very much more philanthropic with the city and stuff.
Ask that again, because I was looking up the Court of Owls on Gotham, and I
like,
totally saw the mask you were talking about.
the relationship growing between like Batman and Gordon and the GCPD, but also like Bruce and Alfred and stuff, and Alfred's potential utilization.
I don't see Alfred being utilized that much. I see him more as like the Earth One Alfred, where he's a little bit more stubborn and just like more of a hard ass. And I think with Gordon and Batman, it's going to develop into the one you know and love.
Yeah.
And a decent Batman story that kind of works really well is when the police work against him.
That is true. I guess we'd see
Gotham working with, or Gotham, but with Gordon working with him.
Yeah. I could imagine potentially there's still that corruption in the police, and we're still seeing like it getting rooted out. You know, Gordon's probably captain or chief at this point in the second movie. And then big question, if we'd see her in the second movie already, or probably not until the third, but Catwoman's return.
He'll come back.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel
I don't see any reason for her not to come back.
I think for sure we'll see her again. But the question, I guess, being like, do you think we'd get her immediately in the second movie, or more like?
I think it'd depend on the conditions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because
it services the plot.
Exactly. All right. Any final last words on the Batman, or anything relating to it, or the future?
The movie's not perfect, but it's damn near. It lived up to the hype. It's probably the best Batman movie, and honestly one of the best comic book movies to come out. And after recent news, I think it's awesome that Zoe Kravitz finally got to be in a Batman movie, because it seems like she always wanted to, and she finally got to. So I read the article. Apparently Anne Hathaway, it was for Catwoman.
Oh, it was for Catwoman. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, and Anne Hathaway got it. So I think it shows that like she was determined to be in a Batman movie, and she finally got it. So I think it's awesome that she finally got to live that dream.
I'm glad it was in this one, honestly.
Yeah, and she got the better movie.
Yeah,
she was the better Catwoman and one of the better characters overall. So I think that's awesome to have. But overall, the movie's good. I try my best not to overhype it, but I think it's the Batman movie we've been really needing for a long time.
For sure.
Yeah. Same. I mean, I could complain about it being a little bit too long. Like it could maybe be like 2.5 hours and it would have been fine. But like, I don't know. It didn't feel too. It's gonna sound really weird to say like it's too long, but it didn't feel too long. Where it's just like when a movie is too long, you feel it, and I didn't really feel it for this month. For this one, it's just like it is a bit of a time investment, is all. But other than that, it was a very good movie. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Definitely probably the best Batman movie, at least.
Yeah. I'm definitely happy considering last year I was like, yeah, my most anticipated movie is Godzilla versus Kong. And I get it. And I'm like, most disappointing movie. I hate everything. But this time, like I said, I was like, yo, this is my most anticipated movie of the year. Ironically, everything keeps happening in March for some reason, but it lived up to everything I wanted it to be. And I said it before, like it's what I consider the best Batman movie. And I'd try so hard not to overhype it, but I would say it is the best comic book movie, surely for the fact that it hits something that the others don't. And I look at it as a comic book film and not a crazy comic inspired blockbuster movie that's just like, here you go, blasts and explosions and shit. Like you really feel like, oh my God, this could get like, I imagine this in many categories in the Oscars. I imagine this like actually being on people's radars because it puts the work in terms of influence, in terms of acting, in terms of design and set and production. And it feels like there was a lot of love involved in the creation of this film. And I can really appreciate that. Like I said, I've seen it twice. I want to see it at least 3 more times in theaters if I can, because I really liked it that much. And if there is a 4-hour version that they put out on Blu-ray, I will fucking watch the shit out of that. I think, like, to describe it really fast, like in the theater, when I watched it the first time, I was just in my head thinking, God, I hope this isn't near the end. I want more. I want more. I want more. I want this to keep going. And I think that's a really great thing if they can do that to someone, or at least to me. And I didn't, for a 3-hour movie, I didn't think about peeing once. I want that on the record.
I did the whole time, but that's just me. Whenever I go to a movie and I know it's really long, I'm just like, I can't drink anything. But then we went to the Alamo and I was like, I need to at least try one of these drinks on their menu.
I had 2.
Yeah.
Well, that was, I saw it once already, so I was like, I could go to the bathroom right now. But yeah, that's been the Cut of Steel, episode 13, talking about the Batman. And I'm glad you guys were both here to it. Brandon, welcome back again. I'm glad to have you here, dude. If you want a real fast, where can people find you?
As always, the handle is Jiggity Jones for all things social media. And you can find me, of course, at the Apollo City Comics podcast, your everything and anything comic book podcast.
And we just did an episode, should already be out the day before this comes out.
Yeah, we did our
over-under?
Overrated, underrated with the live action Batman films. And we kind of just talked about all the movies. We briefly talked about this one, but we talked about all the live action Batman movies up to this point and which ones we felt deserved appreciation and which ones didn't.
Yeah,
I guess
and
I should say.
That came out a day before this. So this is, this came out on a Friday, so it's already out. You can check that out on the Apollo City Comics channel on all podcast platforms, on YouTube and everything else. You guys are still on YouTube, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And of course, James, we can find you at InvaderJim124 on Twitter, and you can find me at GoGoComzilla on Twitter as well. Like I said, this is part of the Sutra Side Talk channel. Please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. If it's Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. If it is Spotify, rate us, and YouTube, give us a like as well as a subscribe. Cut of Steel, I can tell you guys, we got a busy year ahead of us. For sure, we'll have episodes on Black Adam, The Flash, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I also plan for us to have the episode going through every single DCEU movie announced since after Man of Steel. And that's probably going to be one of the sooner episodes we're going to get. We will do an episode on Doom Patrol, seasons 1 through 3, probably. I think we should also be doing an episode on the Harley Quinn animated series, as well as that little comic tie-in they did for that. So that's for sure. We got 9 more months. So we'll have these 6 plus 3 other potential episodes, whether it's one I've wanted to do for a while focused on just Zack Snyder, another one potentially about if we do it either this year or next year. I don't really care about Titans. Of course, we got Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, but I don't necessarily need those out this year. I'm thinking those movies we can keep waiting if we need to. I'm not in a rush for those either, but that's what we're looking forward to for 2022. And those are all the potential things we're going to have, at least maybe not include a game and a comic in there as well. We'll see what happens. But otherwise, until probably later April. We will see you next time. So long.
Thanks for listening.